All right, welcome everyone to the Maran Motoring live stream here on this Sunday evening. I hope you're all doing great. Thanks for joining in here. And I hope you all have had a good week. It's been a really fun week if you're into JDM stuff, like I said, with the weekly update. So many exciting cars here that are potentially coming out this week. And thanks for joining in, everyone. Like I always do with these live streams, going to go for about 2 hours or so, and I'll give priority answering to anyone who, excuse me, who's a member or anyone who is doing any kind of super chats or super thanks, anything like that. I'll make sure to give those ones priority as well. But anyway, I see we already have a bunch of people that have joined in. Thanks for joining. Jazz, Trident Car Guy, Aziz, Kyle, Austin, BT Aurora, Cam Jam, Raphael, and Cars. Thanks for joining in, everyone. And I see Austin's first question here says, Matt, this week's news was pretty awesome. A lot of things for enthusiasts to be excited about out of Japan. What was your favorite from the show? I think it's kind of tough because there were a lot of exciting ones, but I think for me, it's got to be the Mazda. I think, that one just is kind of on the fascinating side. Whenever you're a car reviewer, at least me, I'm fascinated by new ideas and new approaches to things. This is why the most excited cars I'm looking forward to next year are the electric version of the Dodge Charger because of the way they're going to have an exhaust system on it. And then I'm also really excited about the Hyundai Ioniq 5N with its paddle shifting and artificial transmission and all that kind of stuff. New out of the box things, that aren't super predictable about how they would actually feel, so just new things, I think. So with, the Mazda having, the rotary generators, obviously it's going to probably drive mostly like an electric car since it's powering electric motors. But, it just has the potential to just be different, and Mazda doing things in a different way. And then the fact that it's so low with the weight being under 3,200 pounds, it all just is really, really promising. So I think that's got to be my favorite. It's so pretty too. Obviously it's a concept and it's probably not going to be that pretty for production, but Mazda makes some pretty good looking cars. So I have faith that it's going to, if it actually does come to production, it's going to be a knockout too from a styling standpoint. So that was the most exciting one for me, but I'm curious to see what you guys think as far as which ones were your favorite from the show. And maybe I can actually I think I can do polls here. So maybe I can do a poll. Let me just do a poll real quick before I get behind on questions and see. It takes a minute, so sorry I'm not going to be able to talk and type at the same time here, but oh wait, can I only do yes or no? Okay, I can do a couple different options here. So okay, let me see, Mazda, and then we'll do the GTR, and we'll do the Prelude here. And we'll just do I guess we can do the Subaru just for fun, and then we can do other. Actually, it only lets me do 4, so we'll just do those 4 and start a poll here, and then I can just end it whenever we feel like ending it. But that's a fun little thing we can try out. Hopefully, you guys can see that. And all right, there we go, getting some votes there. So let me know which one you guys like the most here. And all right, it's Prelude, and I think that's 50-50 here. Let me see how I can. Okay, now the Mazda is 47. I don't know why it's not showing me all of them. There we go. Okay, so Prelude's the clear winner here so far. Okay, so yeah, Prelude is really exciting as well. I think that the Prelude, that one to me is going to come down to the powertrain. Obviously, it's awesome it's coming back at all. If it's just the same carryover hybrid thing, is that going to be super exciting? I don't know. It'll be good, and it'll be good to have it back, and it'll be just as quick as an SI or something. That'd be great. But if they do something more exciting with it, or there's an Acura version that has the awesome retro styling everyone wanted from the Integra, that could be a little more exciting as well. But I'm glad to see that everyone's really pumped about the Prelude. I think it's also the most exciting one because it's actually like the closest to coming to fruition and actually hitting the streets, and something that also isn't insanely sports car like and insanely expensive, hopefully, so maybe more obtainable. So I can see how that could certainly be the extra appeal there. But I'm curious to see everyone chiming in about. I forgot about adding the MR2. Yeah, that's my bad. I should have put that instead of the Subaru for sure. But yeah, the MR2, that was actually probably the runner up for me. The GTR, the styling is kind of wacky, but performance, if they're actually going to be shooting for 1,300 horsepower in that's going to be awesome. But yeah, so all right, I see. Yeah, there's some MR2 love there. So and I appreciate the hearts and the congrats little things there. It's fun always seeing those pop up. All right, so now we'll do, Beth is suggesting I do a second pulse. We can end this one since the Prelude was the top. Now we'll do Prelude and MR2 and see which one of those is your favorite here. Because I'm curious now since I excluded the MR2 before. This will be quicker to do. All right, try this. And okay, now which one? No, I actually have the proper options up here. Still Prelude seems to be the early winner here. It's neck and neck. Let's see. This is kind of fun. Hope you guys are enjoying this. I'll get to the questions as well. I promise. Just figured I'd do something a little different here to start. Okay, so still Prelude. Okay, it's a little closer this time, but all right. Okay, on 50-50, pretty close. Okay, I mean, at least the MR2, we got to wait a little while for that one. They're saying like probably 2027, maybe 2028. So it's a little ways off, but and obviously, Prelude being gas powered versus MR2 being electric, I'm sure that probably plays into some people's preferences of one or the other. But cool. All right. Well, thanks for voting, everyone. I appreciate it. That was fun. All right. So let's end that here and gets back to the questions. So let me see. See, Joel joined in as well. Thanks for joining in, and a bunch of others. Cam Jam says, I did notice the Prelude looked exactly like a 992 911 in the rear. Am I the only one? There's certainly some of that as well. I think for me, it still looks a lot like a Prius in the back too. Same thing. I mean, it's with everyone doing the single LED strip in the back there these days. I mean, it's not super unique for anybody really, but I can certainly see, looks a lot like a 911 as well, and probably one or two others if I sit down and think about other stuff that has the same kind of styling there. All right, let me see. Jazz says, I saw a BMW i8 this weekend. Looks like McLaren and Lamborghini. You probably don't like the powertrain. 2020 model i8s go for about 80 to 90 grand. Would need to get an extended warranty, as you stated. Yeah, they're fun. I did a review on an i8. When was that? Probably 2017, maybe. Maybe it was even 2016. But I have reviewed an i8. It was a fun car for sure. It was a different powertrain, but I actually really liked it. It had like a really nice roar to it, being the mid-engine and stuff. And I actually thought it was a really cool vehicle, and I kind of liked the styling. To me, it was almost like BMW's take on a DeLorean in a way. And I've always liked the i8. I very rarely see them these days, but they've always been kind of rare, but speaking of rare BMWs, I almost lost my mind. I saw a Z8 for the first time in probably 10 years this week. It just driving around my local area. I'm like, holy crap. I don't know. I think they're like 500 grand now or something. And I was like mind blown to see some guy out just driving a Z8 around here. That's not a car I've ever seen before. So I mean, the last time I saw one of those was when I was working at a BMW dealer back whenever those were like lightly used and no one really cared that much about them. And now it's like they're just going crazy with pricing. But yeah, all those older BMWs are starting to take on a charm for sure, especially with the new stuff these days. So let me see. And I see Rafi has joined in, and Goth Rocker. Thanks for joining in, guys. And Austin says, for me, the MR2 concept was the winner. Yeah, I'm glad to see everyone was having some love for that one as well. I think it's great. And Rafi says, bring a manual hybrid back. I agree. That'd be awesome. And I mean, Honda did it before, so it'd be great to see Honda do it again. And I think, they're one of the front runners. If there's going to be a manual hybrid, I think they could be one of the first ones to do it again. And yeah, I hope they do a manual on the Prelude. That'd be awesome. And let me see. Linda, thanks for joining in too. And Rafi says, I don't know if the MR2 will come in a manual. The MR2, there was some, I don't know if it was just speculation or what, but I think some people were suggesting that the MR2 could potentially get the fake, manual that Toyota is working on for electric cars. We've seen the prototype of that in a Lexus. What was it in? It was in like the little crossover, which the name is escaping me right now for some reason. But it was in their smallest little crossover just as a prototype. But it sounds kind of promising. And they say it actually has a clutch and you can actually stall it even though it's electric and stuff. So if that's the kind of thing they're going to put in the MR2, that could be really exciting as well. Obviously, the concept didn't have any of that. It was just, I think, paddle shifters in the concept. So we'll see what ends up happening. But it'd be great to see some type of manual there. And Yavinder says, you heard the news that Mercedes dealers are having trouble selling the new EQS. I have heard that news, and it's kind of funny. So if you're a member, Yavinder, so you might know the member schedule as far as what's coming there. I have to send an updated version of that to the members because there's things have tweaked a little bit. But Yes, EQS it's kind of funny. That is one I am going to be covering, but it's and I can say I have it right now. Actually, I'm going to be filming my review on it here soon. But the EQS, and I'll save all my thoughts for the review. But I can say that now that I've driven the EQS, I can kind of understand a little bit of why some people aren't in love with it. In addition to the fact that it's expensive and the styling isn't great, and I mean it's not bad. Everything's subjective, but I think there's some things of the EQS that could use improvement, and so I think that that's maybe part of what the holdup is. But yeah, I don't know. I think Mercedes is a victim of their own success, and I think like the S class was just so good that you have a smaller EQS that's the same or more expensive. Who it's really hard to justify that over a regular S class when the S class is so good. But it's like, what do? Do you make the S class worse? Because if you can't elevate the EQS beyond, like if they're putting their best stuff that they have right now into it, like what do you do? Like where do you go? It just relegates itself to being the option for people who want electric, and that's it. So they kind of drew themselves into a corner there with that. So I mean, it's kind of tough, but I can't say I'm super surprised, especially with most EVs selling slower these days, and then everyone being crunched for money, and then you're trying to justify these EQSs with $1,300 lease payments or whatever. As an advertised lease rate is probably after taxes and all that stuff, you're talking about a $1,500 lease payment on something like that. And Mercedes and all the German companies are typically leased company kind of cars. That's really the upper limits of that kind of stuff. So I think there's very good reasons why it's not moving. And I mean, I didn't ever say I was going to see that coming, but I think I can certainly understand that happening. And Austin says, I don't absolutely love the Prelude styling, but it's way better than the Integra in my opinion. And it's a coupe, so I won't complain. Yeah, that's kind of my stance. So I like the styling, but I mean, yeah, any coupe I'm not going to ever complain about, even if it looks like the GTR concept. And Cam Jam says, I was looking on Car Gurus today at new Mach-E's. I saw a GT for 13 under MSRP. Best time to buy. Wow. I have not seen one 13 under. That's a new record, I think. Thanks for the heads up. That's very interesting to hear. Yeah, and this is part of why with our Mach-E, we did the Ford options thing, which is kind of a lease, but we were able to get the tax credit, but it's still like we have a 4-year period. And then after that, we can either just turn the car in or we can buy it for an agreed upon price with like a balloon payment, which is how it's slightly different from a lease. But I did that specifically because I was like, these things could turn out to be worthless in a few years with any kind of change. And now we're seeing the NACS, port switch over. And I mean, they're building the chargers to have CCS as well. So it's not like you're going to have to use an adapter to charge, but it's like, if you want to charge on a Tesla, network, you're going to have the adapter in a few years. So I mean, I can certainly see all these Mach-E's just plummeting in value like anything else that's electric, as this switchover is happening, which is why I've recommended anyone that's getting into an electric vehicle to lease them. Don't be committed to it for long term, because I just feel like from a value standpoint, you could end up underwater. Now, the other things about long-term EV ownership, I don't agree with. I think batteries do hold up better than most people make it out. There's Teslas with 150,000 miles on them that have 90% capacity still. So I mean, I think that kind of stuff, if you treat the battery right, you don't have to worry about that stuff long term. But as far as the value, it's like a complete crapshoot right now. So that's why the Mach-E, we will see. It might turn out to be worthless in 3 years or whenever we need to turn it in, or it might make sense to keep it and hang on to it or something. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, that's impressive though. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. If you're someone who's sitting on the fence though, and you want to lease something and they can give you that discount on a lease, plus you can get some kind of tax credit or something, I mean, yeah, definitely this is the time to get them for sure. And Austin said, new Mercedes design language has really lost its way. BMW designs are polarizing, but at least they have a brand identity still. Yeah, I mean, I'd say the Mercedes still kind of has an identity. It's just kind of in a transition phase between the electric and the gas. But I don't know. I mean, the Mercedes stuff is unimpressive to me too, for the most part, as far as at least the electrics. But I don't know. I'd take one of the electric Mercedes over any of the new BMW designs, I think, honestly, personally. But again, I know that's subjective, but I cannot get behind the BMW designs. The M2 is really the only one I can kind of stomach. Okay, but the others are just I don't know. They're just not for me. Alex says, hey, man, I watched the weekly update on Friday and thought you were exactly right that the Prelude should introduce a new hybrid powertrain that's more powerful, at least 250 as the Pilot needs it. Yeah, and I feel like that's something that makes sense to do. It was kind of surprising that Honda did this new V6 for the Pilot and stuff. That's like, again, kind of the exact opposite, but I mean, they're not the only ones. Mazda's doing it with the CX-90 and stuff. But yeah, it just seems interesting that they're going for that. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it sounds like they really, at least the press release is really making it sound like that, this is going to usher in a new kind of powertrain. So we'll have to wait and see. And Isaac says only EV worth buying outright is the Bolt with the tax credit. Yeah, I guess that's probably true because they're so cheap that, I mean, I don't envision those things depreciating much more from where they're already at. So I think that's potentially good. And I think in Bolt, you can also get the tax credit, with the lease too. So you can go either way with that one. But yeah, I totally think a Bolt's a great buy. I really enjoyed the little Bolt that I had earlier this year. Spy Harpy said, I bought my Model 3 Performance instead of leasing due to the supercharger network. If it was anything else, I would have leased. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense for sure. I mean, I hope you're not, too underwater with your value, depending on when you bought your Model 3. Because, I mean, they just keep slashing the prices. And, I'm curious if the Highland is going to, just plummet the prices even more. But hopefully it works out okay for you. And hopefully you can at least keep it and drive it a long time and not have to worry about the value, if that's something you're into. But Cam Jam says, can you imagine if Honda put the 2.4 K24 paired with a hybrid and a manual on the Prelude? I know it won't happen, but I can hope. Yeah, that'd be amazing. I don't know if they make the K24 even like globally. I know they don't make it here in the States for anything, but yeah, K24 is so good. And I see Fly GTI says, Matt, do you think they'll ever bring back the Evo? I don't think so, at least not here in the States. I think Mitsubishi will be lucky if they're even in the States here in 10 years. That's even being generous. It might even be sooner. They're just really running on fumes. And, I don't know if they got their hands tied with the Nissan partnership, but like whenever they announced the partnership with Nissan, I was like, okay, time for Mitsubishi to literally slap Mitsubishi badges on anything Nissan will let them touch and just, chuck it out. Like, that is what they need to do. They need to have a more robust lineup than like one brand new competitive SUV and everything else that's ancient and, not competitive basically. And it's still crickets. Like, they can't live off of one car here in the States. And that's what they're doing currently. Dealers are only stocking Outlanders because that's the only thing appealing in the lineup. And so, yeah, there's no way an Evo is coming back. They got bigger fish to fry. I know Mitsubishi's a huge company internationally, and maybe that's why if they do something, in Japan or something, great. But even in Japan, I mean, they're far from the top dog, So I think they got to go for, the best profits they can. And that means having, their whole SUV lineup be revamped. And so, yeah, I don't think we'll see an Evo anytime soon. I mean, we can't even get an STI out of Subaru now, so to have an Evo, it's just like, snowball's chance in hell for that one, unfortunately, I think. And let me see. So Scott says, with companies losing so much money on EVs, do you think something will change as that pressure hits government regulations? Ford would close rather than quickly. Sorry, I misread. Close rather quickly at the current losses they're having. Yeah, I mean, they're losing money on EVs, but I mean, look at how Tesla just bled money for years. So I feel like, they understand that like they're putting all this money into the EVs and this is the expensive money losing part of it. That won't always be the case. This is just the case anytime you go into any kind of new technology, there's a lot of R&D, burn rates and just completely, investing in stuff. Some of the stuff works out, some of it doesn't. That's part of these, early days of this new technology. And so, I mean, you have to keep in mind, like all these EVs sitting around, this is a new phenomenon that just happened this year. Look at the past few years. Mach-E's were going for over sticker. They were 10 grand over sticker. I had to drive out of state to get our Mach-E at sticker even last year. And that was an accomplishment to get it at sticker. And so Ford's been pocketing all that money, and that's the thing is, then they've been playing that up with the whole union thing recently. Like, oh, well, it's like, it's so hard. We're not selling any of these EVs, blah, blah, blah. but yet they've been making money hand over fist on every Mach-E for the past couple of years, every Lightning that they could early on, and obviously the dealers are pocketing a lot of that. But I mean, Ford's still getting full price. They're not doing any incentives. They weren't doing any incentives, any marketing, nothing really. Yeah, they were saving a bunch of money and they were raking it in. I mean, Bronco, I mean, you name it. Ford is fine. I'm not concerned. I think, they know what they're getting themselves into. And, we'll see, the government regulations stuff. I mean, Ford's in a pretty good spot, I think, with their fleet standards. That's why they're able to do a V8 Mustang still and keep the Raptor R around and all that, because they got into the EVs early and Stellantis didn't. And so they're playing the opposite approach of like, hey, let's burn the candle all the way to the very end and then, go out with a bang and then have to just completely, neuter everything and, have the Hurricane 6 is like the best case scenario, and then all the other stuff, they're going to be pushing the EVs and the plug-in hybrids and have to play catch up. And in the meantime, they're also getting just hammered with fines while, some of the other companies are able to not have that happen. So, I think Ford's going to be fine. I think they actually played it the better way because now they have a V8 muscle car around and Dodge doesn't. I mean, maybe Dodge will, and, we'll see what happens. But as of right now, it doesn't look like they will. So I think that Ford played the game correctly so far as that goes. And Cam Jam says, crazy how big of a fall the Lightning was for Ford. I've seen 2 ever out in public. I've seen at least 2 this week. Maybe it just probably comes down to where you're at. But they're very popular around here. I see a bunch of them. I see a lot of the lower trim ones, surprisingly. That's the most popular ones. I see a lot of the ones without the light bar across the front. And, people that are just buying that base one. Because I think for a while there, the base one was a great deal until they jacked up the prices. But now even with the higher prices and the discounts, kind of offsetting that, if you can really twist the dealer's arm and get a Lightning for a good discount, it can make a lot of sense and probably be a better buy than average. I mean, I reviewed back in 2021 a regular F-150 with a V8, and it was just an XLT with cloth seats, and it was still like $60,000. So, I mean, if you're not someone who must have a V8, you're better off getting a Lightning for, if you can get it for 45 or 50 with the discounts and stuff for a base one, which still even gives you the bigger screen and stuff. Like, it can still be a good deal and actually a better deal than some of the gas powered ones potentially. So, I think that the media is really taking, especially certain parts of the media are really, hopping on this stuff for one reason or another, whether it's because of the union stuff, trying to sway public opinion, Ford's way of being like, oh, poor Ford, they're not selling any of these things. Like, they've been doing fine. So I've seen, again, ton of Lightnings. Yes, they've slowed down the sales, but I think it's temporary. And I think, we're finding out where the line in the sand is as far as how many people, all the early adopters, we knew they were going to be the ones lining up, paying markups, being the first ones to have it, just like we've seen with the sports cars for decades, and so everyone who wanted a Lightning already has one now. And now it's, converting these people that were on the fence, like, hey, what if we give you 10 grand off? Oh, well, now I'll get into it. And like we're saying with the Mach-E, oh, now it's 13 off for a GT. So now a GT Mach-E that was 73 is now 60. That gets whole lot more appealing. And you get those people that were on the fence that are now like, okay, now I'll go for a Mach-E GT, or now I'll go for an electric F-150 because it's cheaper, it's more appealing, so there's some of that. So I think now you're starting to get some of the people who are on the fence and get those people to come over now that the deals are there, especially in a market where you don't really have very many deals. If you are someone who just hates paying sticker for anything, there might be some people that don't even care about the powertrain and say, you know what, I can get this one for a discount and this I have to pay sticker for. I don't feel good paying sticker. I'm going to get the discounted thing, which happens to be an EV. And you get some of those people. And then that will also dry up eventually. And then it's like, okay, well, now we have to convince the people that actually hate EVs to, go over to the EV side. And I almost wonder if that's what Elon's doing with some of the stuff he's been doing recently of, trying to, kind of change teams in a way. I wonder if that's also trying to see, okay, well, now can we get some other people that might have hated EVs before who now like Elon that are going to hop on the Tesla train because of, the way that he's publicly displaying himself these days. I don't know. We'll see. That's just an interesting hunch that I've been seeing going around. But so this is all new territory, and that's kind of what's fun about this. Covering this is this new territory. We have no clue how this is going to play out. It still could crash and burn. it could take off faster than we realize if, the tech gets better really quickly or the charging experience gets better really quickly. I think the Tesla network will certainly help with, getting a lot of those people off the sidelines. We'll see. But yeah, it's I wouldn't, say that EVs are already sunk or anything like that. I think that certainly there's still some hype there and some demand. It's just that everyone that's really wanted one has already got them. So now it's just up to the car companies to make them compelling and make them cheap enough to get everyone else, to want to buy in. And Cam Jam says he's barely seen them as well. Yeah, so I guess it just comes down to, I guess, where you're at. That's interesting. And Austin says, hey, Matt, do you think the 2.0 Supras will depreciate a lot more rapidly than the 3.0s? I'd be fine with the power of the 2.0 personally. I'm not sure. They might have actually. I haven't ever looked into the Supra 2.0s on the used market. That's a good question. I'd love to find out how they've done compared to the 3.0s already. Because I mean, they've been out for a couple of years already, so there should be some out there. And I think, yeah, they came out, 2021 was the 2.0, if I remember correctly. So, I guess some of them will be off lease here next year potentially. So, maybe that's when you'll see them really start to drop a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a good potential. You're right that they were kind of the ugly duckling that no one really wanted a whole lot, but I loved it. I did a review on a 2.0. They were fantastic. And I even in my review was arguing, if you want a turbo GR86 or BRZ, here it is. Obviously it's not cheap, but a turbo BRZ would be 40 grand anyway. So if here's a 40 grand, Supra 2.0T, it was really fun, sounded good, drove great. Yeah, if you can get a good deal on a Supra 2.0, I totally think that's a good buy. So yeah, but that's an interesting question. I'd love to know. And Jeremy also says 2.0 Supra is amazing, given almost all the weight reduction compared to the 3.0 at the front. So the 2.0 will handle better than the 3. I agree that it seemed like it was really, a little lighter, a little more playful. It actually reminded me more of a GR86, honestly. But it says B58's B58. Yeah, and the B58 is so good that, that's going to win a lot of people over for sure. But if that doesn't hold a lot of sway over you, 2.0 is great for sure. And SOMD, thanks for being a member for 5 months. I really appreciate it. He says, hey, Matt, always look forward to your reviews and live streams. Keep going, brother. I really appreciate it. Thanks for joining in and for your support. It means a lot. And Kyle also says, no Lightnings near me. I saw one on the lot a few weeks ago, but none out on the roads. Nice looking truck. I like it better than the Silverado EV. Yeah, the Silverado, they really went bold. Who knows when we'll actually start seeing those on the roads. Because it's like GM cannot build an EV other than the Bolt to save their life. Unfortunately, it's just like, I don't know what has got them slowed down, but it's interesting. There's no Lightnings near you either. It really must be. I'm not sure where everyone's located here, but I don't know if it's a suburban thing that maybe like around urban areas you see a lot more. I'm guessing compared to, I'm sure no one in the rural areas really wants them, or anyone that drives long distances. I mean, it's especially with truck buyers, it's definitely an uphill battle. So I could see it struggling, but like I said, I've seen a lot out, at least around here. It's kind of interesting. I hadn't seen them for a while, and then recently I'm starting to see them a little bit more. And Greg says they started about 70 or 57 now for the Lightning XLT. So yeah, and if that's before discounts, and you can get them for 10 off at least, I mean, you're talking about, that's a lot of vehicle for, under 50 grand. I think that's, it's a pretty good buy if you're into trucks. And let me see other questions here. Kyle says, Matt, do you think the current dealership model will eventually be replaced with the Tesla model and direct to consumer? Absolutely. When we're seeing companies trying to wiggle their way out of the franchise laws here in the States as best as they can. And some of them are getting creative, like, Ford's kind of doing like their Ford Blue thing, where they're trying to like do a separate-ish company to try and like circumvent the dealers for the EV thing. Lexus has said, we're going to eventually, go to kind of direct to consumer thing down the road. Volvo has said, they're basically going that way. And I believe they're one of the first ones. I can't remember when. I covered that in the weekly update many months ago now at this point, but I feel like in the near future, Volvo dealers are essentially going to be like, the salesman will just be like sitting there with iPads, like, here, let me help you just send your order in. Let's go in the build in price site and I'll help you pick your options. And that's basically the extent of the sales process for them, if I remember correctly. So there's a lot that are trying to go that route. And, the franchise laws in the States are just what are holding companies back. Like, a lot of these companies, they will pay lip service to the dealers, like, oh, we love our dealers. We could never do anything without the dealers. They would all drop them in a heartbeat if they could. I guarantee you, because who wants the middleman? Especially these days, you don't need it. There's a few people that, I will say dealers certainly help some people with, choosing things, or people who don't know enough about cars. And there are some good salesmen out there that genuinely know their product, that educate people honestly and well, and do that. It's just, unfortunately, they're a minority, it seems. And it's just, no one has a good taste in their mouth for dealers. And if it's just going to be this tug of war game for everybody, basically, then it's not a good experience. Manufacturers aren't going to want people to have that experience. They don't. And it's just, obviously, again, I'm speaking in generalities. There's some great dealers and lots of great salesmen, but it's just, unfortunately, it just seems like that's not the norm. That's not, at least what I've heard, is the majority experience, for most people. And all these polls and stuff that come out, it's always like people are like, yes, I hate dealers. Like, that's the consensus. So, the manufacturers understand that, and they want to improve that, and you're not going to improve it with dealers, because the dealers are complacent. They're greedy, as we've seen in the past couple of years. They will stomp on you like a cockroach, the second they get the chance. And then the second that things aren't great, they'll go and cry about how they're losing money, this, that, and the other, even though they've all never been richer than they've gotten over the past few years. These past few years have been the best years to be in the car selling business ever. So much profits with so little work. And it's been an absolute feast for them. So, I think the dealer model, give it another 10 years or so, and I think you're going to slowly start to see these companies do these offshoots, whether it's just shriveling up the original brand into a shell of what it once was. We're seeing Honda's doing the Afeela thing with Sony as like a side thing, and that's going to be direct to consumer. And you're seeing these new offshoot brands, Polestar for Volvo. Polestar is a new thing now, so we can adopt the Tesla model and not stick to the franchise laws that Volvo is under, and circumventing that a little bit. Obviously they're still doing new Volvos and stuff, but it's trying to at least separate some of that out, and slowly build up those alternative brands that aren't stuck under those laws, and trying to get around that stuff. So yeah, I think it's only a matter of time. They're slowly wiggling their way out of those laws the best way they can. Let me see. So I don't want to get too far behind on questions here. Raphael says, I could be happy with the 2.0 Supra 2. I like the looks of the Supra, and I'll never use all the high-end performance. Yeah, and it's got a lot of, boost down low there, and really feels good for sure. And Cam Jam says, random last question because I have to go. What's your favorite Michael Jackson song? I don't know. I'd say maybe Man in the Mirror. Honestly, I'm not like, I don't like have, all the albums or anything, so I'm not the best person to ask. But I'd say that. Thriller, especially this time of year, is always a great one to listen to. But there's so many good ones, but I think that one's just very, very profound, and I just like that one a lot. But thanks for joining Cam Jam, and hope you have a great week. Austin says, SoCal, urban, and rural here have never seen a Ford Lightning in person. Interesting. I'm surprised Southern California, because I feel like even when I was at the LA Auto Show last year, when I was walking around out in the downtown LA, though, I feel like I saw a good amount of them. That's interesting. And two says, hey guys, from the basement, Matt, why did Kyle get to go to Tokyo? You said everyone in the basement was going. Instead, we had to watch you play Raid Shadow Legends. Thanks for joining in too. I was jealous of everyone that was in Tokyo this week. I'm just, over here, just not knocking it out of the park like some of those other bigger YouTubers. So I don't get the cool invites, unfortunately. Rafi says, if only the dealers didn't go on crazy markups, this wouldn't exist. Sell it for a sticker or less, and let me choose accessories. Yeah, the dealers did it themselves. That's why I have zero sympathy for them. Again, I know there's some good people at dealers that will, unfortunately, also pay the price of, the crappiness of their colleagues and stuff, that, whenever they, again, do get rid of these dealers. But it's just, and I even, my brother-in-law is a car salesman. I even told him, I'm like, don't plan on doing this for another 10 years. I'm like, it's a sinking ship in my mind. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's a sinking ship, for sure. And Sean, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, as you know, I fell victim to the Kia challenge. When the insurance check comes, I'm going car shopping. Wish me luck. Rough market. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween to you too. Thanks so much for the super chat, and best of luck with the car shopping. If you want to bounce anything off of me as far as what you're thinking, I can help you, narrow down options, or if there's anything I can help with, definitely let me know. And yeah, sorry to hear about the Kia challenge. Hopefully everything's worked out okay here in the past week as far as the settlement and all that with the insurance. For anyone who didn't watch last week's live stream, his Kia literally last Sunday was stolen, and so that's not great. So hopefully they're taking care of you there. But thanks for joining in, Sean, and hope the week improved for you after last Sunday. So that's because that was rough, I'm sure. I've never, knock on wood, never had a car stolen, but it cannot be a good experience, obviously. So yeah, thanks for joining in. And let me see here. So Goth Rocker says Ford Lightnings do not sell well at all in this area of PA. The Lincoln Ford dealer I do business with said they sold only a handful this year. Everyone wants gasoline, especially when it comes to trucks. Definitely, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially with people who tow and things like that. And I believe you were up in the rural northeastern part of PA there, so I can certainly see, again, if you're not near a city center, it might be an uphill battle for sure. And Bando C32 said, thoughts on trading my daily 2013 Focus ST3 in for a manual Acura TL super handling all-wheel drive. I have a 1-hour daily commute coming up, and I'm not looking forward to sitting in the cars for that long. Totally can understand that. If your commute is not, I mean, I'm guessing, you're talking about manuals here. So I guess you don't mind, having a manual for your commute if you're not doing stop and go or anything really. But the TLs are really comfortable. I was really impressed with, the one I reviewed. And I think it'd be a nice little, commuter car for sure. I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously the tech is a little bit of a downgrade if you have it. Well, I guess 2013 Focus wouldn't have CarPlay either. So you're not really losing anything there. So, I mean, I think, from a comfort standpoint, it's going to be quieter. It's going to be a little more refined. Should be a nice, kind of horizontal change there. I mean, the other thing I will say, I haven't driven the manual TL, but I mean, I can tell you, I definitely had more fun driving a Focus ST than I did a Acura TL. But, again, if that's the best choice for you, then, you're obviously probably going into this aware that you're going to be losing some of that excitement with the Focus ST. Going to the TL, then I think, it's a really nice vehicle. And if you can find a manual, it's probably a good investment as well, because there's not many out there, and I'm sure they will become more and more sought after as the years go on. So might be a good long-term thing too, if you're planning on, sticking with it for a while. So hopefully that helps you. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions though, and thanks for joining in. And Evolving, thank you so much for becoming a member. I really appreciate it. And I'll keep an eye out if you have any questions here as well. But thanks so much for joining in. And Jeremy, thanks so much for being a member for 18 months. I really appreciate the long-term support there. He says, member for 18 months already. Do you think used car dealers should exist, or should manufacturers control used sales like Tesla? I think with used car dealers, that's a different story. Because, with that, at that point, you're kind of, it's not in the dealers, or it's not in the manufacturer's hands anymore. We're not talking about manufacturer cars, like it's not connected to the manufacturer at that point. Once it's sold, it's out of the manufacturer's hands. And, because then you have modified stuff that, maybe the manufacturer wouldn't approve of, but you don't want to have them strip every car down to stock, because there's some people who make a good amount of money selling modified cars, on their lots and stuff. So I feel like used cars at that point, it's a different thing, because at that point, you're not just a middleman, you are someone who's actively buying and selling stuff. And that's a whole separate kind of business in my mind. So I feel like, used car dealers should be left alone. And I think, honestly, looking long term, I think that's kind of going to be the lifeboat for all these new car dealers is, if they're not willing to either cave to the demands of the manufacturers as far as, requiring them to just essentially be, McDonald's kiosks with, punching in your own order and and waiting for it to show up on a truck, because that's what I think new dealers are going to be for the most part eventually, if they are actually going to stick around as a brick and mortar thing. I think really the thing for them is going to all just go straight into the used stuff, which, I mean, if you talk to any dealer, like used stuff is typically the stuff that is the most profitable anyway. So I feel like dealers should be okay with that. Anyway, I mean, yes, obviously they want to sell the new stuff too. And especially if you're a company that sells, high-end stuff, like if you get Corvettes or, Mustangs, things like that, you can mark up more often. You get a lot of extra, cash flow there. But I mean, the used stuff is always the more profitable. Even like I worked as a detailer way back in high school and college at a Porsche, BMW, and Audi dealer. And those, I mean, the guys that were selling the new Audis, they were like broke as broke can be. They were making no money. BMW guys weren't making any money either. The Porsche guys were doing a little bit better, but even those guys, I mean, the guy that was like one of the Porsche salesmen had like a 1995 S4 that he was like keeping running. And that was like, I mean, like they weren't making very much money. The guy who was making the most money there was the guy running the used sales manager. He was the guy that had an NSX. He had, what else did he have? He actually had a 911. So like the 911 salesman in the new building had no money whatsoever. And the guy selling the used stuff for 15 grand, he was the one that actually had the 911, the NSX, all the sweet stuff. And it was like, the used car business is the business to be into if you're really wanting to make money, in my opinion, at least. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of very profitable new car stuff as well, but they all sell used as well. And so I think the new stuff obviously keeps the circle of life going, but the used stuff is really where the money's at, because you rip them off on the trade-in and then you mark it up, and there's way more of a margin there than, a lot of these cars, some of them are a little, there's a little bit more margin built into the new stuff than some other new stuff, but a lot of the new stuff, there's not much. It's like a couple grand on some cars. And so, if there's any negotiations that go on, and then you have, any other back and forth stuff, or you have a floor cost of the car sitting there for a little while and that eating into that profit margin or whatever, there's a bunch of stuff that can really take the profitability out of the new cars. Whereas with the used stuff, you have a lot better chance of actually making a good meaty profit on them. So I think used is definitely going to be the way that most of these dealers will end up going down the road. And I think, again, if that's the case, then they're, people are agreeing to sell their cars for whatever they're agreeing to sell them for, and they're buying whatever for whatever they're wanting to buy. That's fine, but it's, I think the new stuff is just where it's a little different, because they are literally the gatekeepers to those cars and no one can get to them otherwise. It's just kind of a little bit crappier there, in my opinion. But let me see. So other questions here. Austin saying, chiming in about the ST there. So I mean, honestly, if you like the ST, Bandis, I mean, I would say, if you don't love the Recaros for a daily, maybe downgrade to a regular one. There's another Recaros, or find an ST3. I believe weren't there ST3s with the regular seats? Maybe I'm misremembering. But regardless, you can get an ST with regular seats. That might be something to look into if you're open to it. I think that kind of be the way to go if you really do love your ST, for sure, because they are really fun cars. And Goth Rocker says, I agree. Mitsubishi in America will most likely focus on redesigns of their SUVs. The Outlander is very impressive, I know, based on a Rogue, but the Mitsubishi feels more luxurious and a better value. Yeah, that's kind of the impression I got too. I haven't driven it, but just seeing them, and what they offer, it seems like that's definitely the better buy of the two, most likely. Raphael says, my buying experience and every trip to the dealer is a good experience, but I could still buy a car without needing a dealer. Yeah, and it's really great when you do have a good dealer you can rely on. And there's a lot of people that do, and they have a great relationship with their dealer. And it's really nice. Funny little side tangent I will say about dealers too. You said you have a good experience every time at a dealer. I haven't talked about this, and I wasn't going to do a video on it, and I don't think I will. But I took the Bullet in for a state inspection. In PA here, we have to have an emissions inspection and a visual state inspection. We can't have cars that are having pieces falling off and stuff. Like Ohio and other states, it's like your car can be, a complete death trap and they don't care. But in PA, they don't let that happen, and they kind of regulate that a little bit closer. So you have to take a car in every year for an inspection, and the Bullet is under, if it's 5,000 miles or less, you don't have to do the emissions thing. So they don't have to worry about that. But they did their usual inspection, and for a state inspection, they need to drive it at least a mile to make sure it's roadworthy and all that. And so I went into it knowing that. I went to a dealer that I haven't gone to in a long time, because the guy who usually does all my maintenance on the Bullet is no longer a mechanic. And the person he recommended, I wasn't able to get into them in time because the inspection was ending it was expiring at the end of this month. So I went to a newer dealer. I've used them in the past a long time ago, but took the bullet there, and they unplugged my dash cam while they were driving the car around, and I let them have it. I had no clue that they said that apparently that's their policy. They didn't warn me of that ahead of time, but they unplugged the dash cam, and so I have no clue. And they're like, "Oh, our guys don't beat on cars, blah blah blah." And I'm like, I just don't know. I'm like, that's why I run a dash cam, so I know if someone's driving my car, I know what is happening to it, and I'm going into this blind and I have no clue, and it's just their word versus whatever. And the car drove fine when I got it back and stuff, but they put 5 miles on it instead of 1 mile. And they're like, oh, well, sometimes they drive more miles if they need to. And, it's not always, it's a minimum of a mile, but a lot of times they do 3 or 5 miles. I've talked to my one mechanic buddy though. He's like, I don't do 5 miles on a car. He's like, you got to turn those over as fast as possible. You don't want to be in someone's car for more than a mile if you don't have to. So I was not happy about that. All I did was I left a negative Google review, but I don't have proof that they actually did anything wrong. So I'm not going to make a big stink about it. But it's just, I'm just basically bottom line, Raphael. I'm very jealous of the fact that you have good dealers and you can trust them and you can, and they do a good job for you. But at mine, they are unplugging my dash cam and not telling me about it. And other dealers I know in the past have not unplugged it. So it's like, why they say, oh, it's to protect our mechanics' privacy. But it's like, the hood's up the whole time they're working on it. So like, aside from like them walking in front of the car to pop the hood up, I don't see the mechanic. I don't know what he looks like. I don't care. It's just about when the car is moving, I want to know, what's going on there. And I even actually disabled the microphone, so I don't even hear what they're talking about. I just want to make sure that, it's not being, just beat on. And, so I was pretty pissed about that, and I'm obviously not going to go back to that dealer anymore. But it's just like all the Ford dealers around here suck so bad, and I wish there was just a decent Ford dealer. And man, so anyone who has good dealers around them, you're very lucky, and don't take it for granted, I guess, because it's man. I really hate dealers around here. Like most of them are so crappy. And it's not even just the Ford dealers. Like I hear so many bad things from everyone about every dealer around here. It's just like, man. So from my standpoint, I'm like, I can't wait for these dealers to go away. But I know some people have great dealers and that's great. And I hope those ones do stick around longer and thrive and, all that. But it's just, some of them are just terrible. Anyway, moving on here to some other questions. Evolving, thanks for asking your first question. He says, I'm considering enrolling in the Skip Barber Racing School for their 3-day class with the Formula 4 car. I see your certificate in the background. Can you tell me and us a little bit about your experience? Absolutely. So yeah, I did the Skip Barber thing. That was the Abarth program. So that one was just a 1-day program. That one, I think that was, I can't remember which track that was at, but that was up in Oregon, I believe. So yeah, I don't remember where exactly that one was at. That was a while ago. That was, I think, 2017 or 2018. I did that one. Skip Barber's okay. If they weren't my favorite of all the ones I've done. So I've done Skip Barber. I've also done the Cadillac V Performance Academy, which is the Ron Fellows thing at Spring Mountain. So if it's, you can either, if you buy a Corvette or you buy a V product, you get it for free. I used to pay for your travel, but and then I believe you can also just sign up for that one as well. That was my favorite one out of all of them. The Formula 4 thing might be really cool though, because I only did the 1-day thing with Skip Barber, so maybe they have some more in-depth training. Obviously for the 3-day thing could be a lot better. Bondurant I also did. That has now changed its name to something else, I don't remember. That was also out west there, and that was a really good one as well. And that was really fun because that one I did in Hellcat. And so doing it in Hellcats all day, it was just a 1-day one for that one. That the V program was 2 days. That was the best one I've done. But I also did a little half-day thing with McLaren at Sonoma Raceway with like what they train, people who buy a new McLaren, they get a free half-day thing. I did that one as well. So Skip Barber was definitely one of the better ones. They just, at least whenever I did Skip Barber, it wasn't the most thorough, and I had done that after I'd done the V Performance Academy and Bondurant, and both of those to me advanced my driving skills more than the Skip Barber one did. And they did some of the same exercises as Skip Barber, but they weren't they weren't as constructive for me because they did the same exercises, but then there wasn't any discussion afterwards about like, this is why you messed up here or there, or there wasn't any kind of like follow up. It was just like, okay, now we're going to do this little one and then we'll do this one over here. And you kind of, it seemed like to me, they were just like checking all the boxes. And then there's like, okay, like you did it, good job, and just kind of like getting you through the program versus with Bondurant and the V, they'd be like, here's why this didn't work out. Here's what you did well. Here's what you didn't do well, especially the V program. Because with the Cadillacs, or the Corvette, you have the performance data recorder where it'll show all the telemetry of the car plus a video of what you're doing. And so it was like you go out and you go with the instructor or whatever, and then you bring your SD card back in. They download it. They're like, okay, here's where you lost time on this corner and this place or wherever. Here's where you can brake later. Here's what you can do. And they literally really, it's insane how you evolve your driving at light speed whenever you have that back to back, here's all the data, here's all this stuff. And again, maybe, I don't know how you feel about GM stuff and all that. So it might not be the best program for you, but I can't say enough good things about the Ron Fellows program there. But Skip Barber, again, I'm sure there's different ones and different programs depending on where you're at and stuff. So I'm not a good judge of it, but I'll just be honest and say it wasn't my favorite out of all the ones I've done. But I think that there's no such thing as a bad driving school. I've always enjoyed all of them. You always, at least if nothing else, refine your skills and improve your skills, just getting the extra practice. And I highly recommend it for anyone. It's so much fun and it's so enriching if you're an enthusiast to really move the ball forward there. I loved it a lot, and so I'm sure the Skip Barber one will be great. So I think any of them are always a good idea. So hopefully that helps you a little bit there. And Stephen, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, "What happened at service? I just logged on. Sorry to ask." Well, Cliff Notes, I don't want to get into it again because I literally just said it 5 minutes ago. But the Cliff Notes is that they unplugged my dash cam when I took the Bullet in for a service, and they drove it 5 miles. And they only needed to drive it 1 mile. And they swore that they didn't do anything, that their tech was great and fantastic. And I had no proof, so I didn't make a big stink about it. I didn't do a video about it. I just left a negative Google review just being like, hey, heads up, they unplug your dash cam. If that bothers you, don't go here. And that was it. And I mean, a lot of people don't care, it's the OCD people like myself that sit there and I go back and, anytime I bring the Bullet in for anything in the past or any of my Mustangs or cars in general, I would always come back, download the footage and sit there and pan through the footage and make sure that nothing shady was happening, without my knowing. And so that was the short of it there. So not great. Make sure that if you are taking your car in for service and you are, picky about that stuff, ask in advance, will you unplug my dash cam? And different states have different laws, by the way, about dash cams. You have to make sure that it's a state where it's legal to record people driving and all that. And, like in PA here, it's a 2-party consent state for audio. So that's why, even though it's kind of consenting, if you clearly see the dash cam and that it's recording, but I turn off the mic here in PA just so that I don't have any, legal issues if I do end up recording something I shouldn't record or whatever. So I always have the mic turned off on my dash cam, but I always have the video running there because that is, you don't have to have any consent for the video part if you're out in public, driving around, or you're on, private property, but you're in my car, which is, my property. I feel like, that's all good. But anyway, Sean, thank you so much for the super chat as well. He says, I did the Porsche experience. It felt like a sales pitch the entire time. I'm doing the Raptor experience next year, hoping that's more informative. Yeah, I hope it is as well. I actually had someone who just did the Bronco experience that I was talking to not too long ago, and someone who also did the Raptor experience this summer that was actually, I went to the dentist and I had the Raptor R that week. And so I rolled up to the dentist and the Raptor R, and the dentist that I go to, they know what I do, and they're always excited, like, oh, I wonder what car he's going to bring this time. And the guy was sitting there waiting to get his teeth cleaned or whatever. He was another Raptor owner. He's like, oh, is that the R? And so we got to talking. He's like, yeah, I just did the Raptor experience. It was awesome. It was really, he was really excited about it. And he's like, do you do much off-roading? I'm like, nope, I'm a total noob. I'm just an idiot driving this Raptor R around that, doesn't appreciate what it can actually do, because I've never taken it off-road or anything like that. But he really seemed to like it. Again, a very anecdotal, random guy I talked to at the dentist that liked the Raptor experience, but hopefully it will be a good experience. I've heard one good thing about it. So hopefully it does go well for you. It's unfortunate to hear about the Porsche experience, though. I feel like if someone's going to do a good driving school, I feel like Porsche should be one of them, but it's a bummer that it wasn't the best. But I appreciate that info, and I will keep that in mind, if I ever get the experience or the chance to do that experience in the future. But sorry it wasn't the best for you, but I'm hoping the Raptor one will be better. I've heard it's good. So thanks so much again, Sean, for the super chat there. And let me see other member questions. So Jeremy says Tesla's kind of doing it by not allowing third party or even the owner to buy their leased cars so they can keep a big stock of used Teslas. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I'm not in love with that myself. I mean, it's just kind of weird. The whole lease buyback thing not being allowed is also kind of crappy. A few other companies were doing that as well, and I just feel like, especially like a lot of them had a contract that said like this is what you can buy it for, and then they're like trying to allow people to not do those. That's, to me, not a kosher thing, and I don't know. I feel like legally that could be challenged, but who knows? Austin says, I think only the Focus ST ones had the base seats. I have base seats in my Fiesta ST, and for a daily, they are more than adequate and comfortable. Yeah, and I think so. The Fiesta ST that I reviewed, I believe I reviewed one with recars, but I did test drive one that didn't have recars because. And I don't know how many people. I think I talked about this a long time ago. I don't know if it was in a video or if it was in a long time ago last year, but I almost bought a Fiesta ST instead of the Mustang EcoBoost before I went down the whole thing with the EcoBoost Mustang, which I'm not going to get into with that. But the Fiesta ST was like the car I was really considering getting whenever the Mini Cooper S was falling apart. I was like, well, I really like the Fiesta. Beth actually had a regular Fiesta at the time, and I was like, I like the Fiesta. The Fiesta ST is amazing, and there's a lot of hype around that car back then too. So I almost bought a base blue Fiesta ST with the base seats there, and in hindsight, it's actually something I kind of wish that I had done. The EcoBoost Mustang was a great experience, and I'm happy that I got to experience that. But I almost, if I could redo it all over again, I feel like I would have gone for the Fiesta ST and then waited either to get into a GT later or just hold on to that until the actual Bullet came. But who knows what would have been the right thing to do, because Fiestas certainly sometimes have their problems, it seems, as well. But I kind of regret not owning a Fiesta ST myself. But anyway, thanks for the info there, Austin, about the seats. I mean, I guess going down to a base one might be tough if you're used to a ST3 trim. But if you really love the ST, maybe that's a potential, and you can always get them wrapped in leather or something like that if you want to upgrade the experience a little bit, potentially too. And Bando says, with the thoughts from Austin Powers, maybe I'll just eat the 10K for the TL to keep the ST, or maybe just swap a non-recaro seat. Yeah, I mean, that's always an option too. That's probably even a better option if it's an easy swap with the airbag and stuff, because I believe they had side airbags, right? I don't know. But yeah, if you can just swap seats and just keep your car, especially with interest rates the way they are right now, that might be the best thing to explore. Just swap seats, because I feel like buying a car right now for anybody is just a bad idea unless you're paying cash. So yeah, maybe swap the seats and go from there. But best of luck for your situation there, and hopefully you can figure out something that works for you. And Jazz says, I did not know you had a dash cam. Maybe you can do a video on dash cams, though I realized you're running a business and might not be worth it. And I realized there are other videos on it. Would still be interested in your extended comments about dash cams. So I actually did dash cam reviews, and I actually did previously, a few years back, a video series called Stuff I Saw Last Month, and eventually went to like a quarterly thing because I didn't see enough stuff. But as far as dash cams goes, if you search on the channel for just dash cam, the reviews should come up there, the ones I've done. I mostly reviewed the Vantrue dash cams because they just sent them to me for free, and so I was like, okay, I'll give a review over these, and it worked out okay to do that for a little bit, but these days I'm just too busy to work that into the upload schedule. But dash cams are definitely a nice thing to have, again, especially if you ever have anyone else driving your car, or if, again, you just live in a place where you have sketchy people. It's just always good to have your butt covered, in the event that someone hits you and lies about it, or an accident. Sometimes they blame an accident on you when it wasn't your fault, whatever the case might be. So I always recommend having a dash cam. I think it's a great idea. If you're curious about the dash cam I use, I have a link in the description here. It's an Amazon storefront, so it is a commissions thing if you go buy the stuff or whatever. I don't care, but it's an easy way for me to list all the products that I use. And on that Amazon storefront there, I have the dash cam. It's a Vantrue X4, I believe. It's a 4K dash cam. I like having the 4K because it means if you need a license plate, if someone hits you or something, it's just nice to be able to have the longer distance of like being able to make out little details with the 4K capability. So I run the 4K dash cam there in the Bullet, and it's nice to have. Thankfully, I've never had to use it for any kind of emergency situation or anything, but it's just a good extra coverage to just cover your butt there. So definitely recommend getting them. And there's lots of cheap ones too, like that. The 4K ones are definitely expensive. If that's not something that's reasonable for you, you can always just go for a cheap one. You still have footage, even if it's lower res of what just happened, and that can be priceless depending on kind of the situation you're in. So I definitely recommend dash cams for sure. And let me see. So Fook, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, sorry about the service experience, but celebrations drinks to the fantastic weekly update. Maybe you should get a separate celebration bottle. I agree. I was contemplating doing a celebratory drink in the weekly update. I just chose not to because I was feeling a little run down that day, and I'm really trying to not get sick because I'm going to SEMA this week, and I needed to make sure that I was not running my system down a little bit there with a nightcap. So I just chose not to for that. But yeah, that was one of the ones where I was like, actually, like I want to have a celebratory drink and not have the whiskey always be like a depressing, like, oh, like all the fun cars are going away kind of thing. So I'm gonna try and work positive celebratory drinks in here in the future for sure. But that was definitely the video I should have done it in if things lined up. But thanks so much for the super chat there, Fook, and appreciate you joining in here. And let me see, getting back to the other questions. Jorge says the dealer deserves a bad review. Those excuses are crap. Yeah. And I told them I'm not buying this. I was just like, I don't have the proof. And so, my hands were tied, but I mean, I let them have it, and they even had like their manager try and reach out to me, and I'm like, I'm not talking to anyone else about this. Like, I already laid it out, and like, there's nothing more they can say. They claimed their guy was, above board and everything was good. And what else are they going to say? Like, they're not going to say anything else that convinces me. So it's like, I was like, talk is cheap, man. I'm like, it's great you said that. I'm like, that's very nice of you to say that the person that was driving my car was a great guy and this, that, and the other, and he never beats on anything. I'm like, that's fine. But I also realize this is not a slow car. And, I'm not saying I have the coolest car in the world or anything, but like, if you're in a job where you're driving boring cars all the time and someone comes in and something fun, like, I don't blame you for being tempted to, want to have a little fun in it. So like, it's just like, I didn't buy their excuses at all. So that's why I was like, I'm just going to leave the comment, and that's that. And they replied to the comment, the Google review too. And they were like, sorry, that it wasn't great or whatever, but yeah, that's our policy and for privacy reasons. And I was just like, yep, it is what it is. But at least they left the review up. And so hopefully that'll just be a fair warning for anyone that's looking into that dealer in the future to know, just because, and I told them, and I think they claim that in the future they will let people know that their dash cams are going to be unplugged. I'm sure they're not. That was just a load of crap. But that's what legally needs to happen. If you're going to be messing with crap inside my car and yanking wires and stuff, because I haven't plugged into the cigarette lighter. So they actually like were pulling crap out of my cigarette lighter. And, it's just like, to me, that's almost like an invasion of my stuff, to be like messing with my stuff in the car, so, I told them, I'm like, I'm legally allowed to record this, and like you pulling that out is not cool. I don't care about your privacy, whatever. Like I told him I disabled the mic for the privacy reasons legally as far as what you need to do in PA. But it's just, yeah, I told him I'm not buying this crap, but I don't have any proof. So what am I going to do? So it just sucks. But anyway, Jazz says the luxury car dealers tend to be pretty good in my experience. Typically, yeah, I can kind of agree with that. It seems like that is the Mercedes dealer near us that we took Beth's cars to in the past when she had her Mercedes. They were pretty good. They weren't the best. There was like one or two times where I told them not to wash the car because it had a ceramic coating, and they did wash it. And I had to like check it out for scratches, because they take it through their crappy, touching car wash that, could have had a G-Wagon with mud all over it ahead of us or something, and then our nice ceramic coated C-Class goes through there and gets, who knows what. And so, everyone makes mistakes. It's fine. But, I've never had a perfect and 100% perfect dealer, long-term experience, unfortunately. And I know some people do, and that's great, but just not been my experience, unfortunately. And Austin says, I had an incompetent Ford dealer near me that took 6 months to properly fix my Fiesta ST. Well, then, I'm glad I'm not the only one, I guess, but that sucks to hear for you. I'm sorry that was, yeah. Man, why are dealers just so bad? Again, I really feel bad because there are some really good ones and there's some really good people in that business, but it's just like, this is the kind of stuff I usually hear all the time. And it's just like, man, it sucks. Steven says, try to find a service advisor that drives a Mustang. That's what I did. He has a 500 and keeps filters, oil, etc. in stock. Yeah, well, so my solution going forward, so it was kind of a funny mix up. So the guy who used to do all the service on the Bullet, who's now no longer a mechanic, he recommended his buddy who works at a different Ford dealer. He's like, yeah, have him, do it. Tell him I send you. He'll take care of you. He'll make sure everything's totally cool. So that was my plan for the Bullet. But then they weren't able to get me in before the end of the month. I admittedly had tried to make the appointment, a couple weeks into this month. So it was my own fault for procrastinating. But also the person, it was so bizarre. I took the Mach-E in for its inspection the month before, and the person that my buddy said to have do the work on the Bullet, his first and last name is the same as a salesman. There was a salesman approached me while I was waiting for the Mach-E service to get done. He's like, hi, my name's Alex, and I'm a salesman here. And I was like, oh crap, this is the guy who just was the service guy that was recommended to me. And I didn't say anything. I was like, oh, cool, nice to meet you. And that was it. And so I was like, crap, well, now I can't send it to him because he's a salesman now and not a mechanic anymore. And then I was talking to my buddy a few weeks after, and I was telling him about this thing that happened with the Bullet. And he was like, oh man, he's like, no, he definitely is still a mechanic. And so he looked into it. He's like, holy crap, they hired a guy with the same exact first and last name as the guy that I told you to take the car for service. So this dealership has two people with the same exact first and last name working there. Like, what are the odds? So now I know for the future, take it to the service place that my buddy recommended and, ask for that mechanic, and hopefully there will be no issues going forward. So it was a one and done bad experience, thankfully, but just, it still just doesn't make me feel good not knowing how the Bullet was treated. For this 5 miles there. And I mean, I know it's just a car, and it's, I don't want to be crazy, but I'm sure they thought I was insane for making a fuss about it. But it's just, I don't know, to me, it's just my personality, I guess. And Isaac says, agree with you about the dealers in Pittsburgh. I had one of the worst dealership experiences at the Ford dealer in Castle Shannon. It was absolutely bonkers. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but a good heads up. Thanks for the heads up that even out in Castle Shannon, which is a little further from me, even there, it's a bad experience. So, geez, I was hoping it was just the few around me here in the North Hills of Pittsburgh, but I guess it seems like they are a little dicey everywhere. So anyone, by the way, who's in the Pittsburgh area, if you want to send me a message, if you want to have a hopefully good experience, I can send you to the same person I was recommended by my buddy. And we can all hopefully have better experiences going forward here in the future. Let me see. Jazz says, okay, thanks for filling in, Stephen there. 2 says, Matt runs a dash cam. Okay, remember that one time you thought I took the car for a joyride and ended up in a corner? It was Kyle's idea. You're funny too. Thanks for chiming in with the jokes here. Stephen says, wow, one of those recording things that can go for days. Clicks on voice activated. Yeah, they're really good. The other thing with dash cams, just be careful. Sometimes they can drain your battery, so you got to make sure you're either having one that has a kill switch so that it turns off when the car turns off, or that it has some kind of alternate power source. Mine, I just have it in the cigarette lighter there, and I just pull it out usually whenever I don't want it to record, and that saves the battery there a little bit. Yeah, and he says notice can do the consent thing. Yeah, and there are some people that do have like a sticker item on their Ubers and stuff saying like you're being recorded and all that. I mean, my dash cam, whenever the car turns on, like the dash cam goes ding, 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 and the screen comes on. So it's very obvious, and it's hanging right below the rearview mirror. So you can't miss it if you're looking forward. You'll hear it if you have ears, and you'll see it if you have eyes. So like, yeah, kind of consent there anyway. But again, if there was an issue there, I could have really, made a case about it, but like I said, I have no proof, and that's how they cover their butt, and it's crappy. And anyway, I'll try not to dwell on this for the whole live stream here. And let me see. Steven says, Matt, you might enjoy the outdoors and power. Not sure what you're meaning there. He says, as a lawyer, not legal advice, but that lease buyback could clearly be likely challenged. Interesting. Good to know. And let me see. Jazz says, Matt, would you be willing to do a survey now of people online if people have a dash cam or not? I'm not sure what you mean. A survey of people online. I'm not sure. Oh, I can put up a survey here. I mean, I could do a little poll. Yeah, we can say just for kicks here. I can see who has a dash cam and who doesn't. So it's an interesting question. Do a yes or no here. See if I'm the only crazy person with a dash cam or if everyone else has one as well. All right, there we go. Feel free to vote away if you want, and we'll see here in a couple of minutes what the results are. I'm going to move on to a couple other questions. We'll come back to that. Steven says, Matt, did you see the testing of the cars rented by semis to see the different cars and the survival rate? Be an interesting post by you. I was shocked. I have not seen that. If you have a link or something, I'd love to hear about that. I had not seen that. I didn't come across that. So definitely would love to look into that. If you have a link, you can either just email it to me, or if you want to just post it as a comment here, I can check it out later. But I definitely would love to see that. I hadn't heard about that. So thanks for bringing that to my attention. And Jazz says, is it expensive to have a dash cam installed? If you do a hardwire thing, that could, I guess, cost money. Mine is literally a little suction cup. And so I just suction cup it to the windshield. I just tucked the wire behind the headliner and the bullet and just ran it down the A-pillar and then had it like kind of swoop into the glove box area there. And I keep the excess cord in the glove box. And then I just have just enough that comes out and winds around, and I plug it straight into the cigarette lighter. So that's how I run it on mine. But a lot of people do like doing the hardwire thing, and you can hardwire it right into your rearview mirror if you have a powered rearview mirror. That's a popular thing to do. Some people even do a forwards and backwards one, and they'll have another one on their rear window. And so that could get a little more expensive if you have to drop a headliner or get creative with, wiring stuff up. So there could be some more extensive ones. I just have the front coverage, and it's just, I have the cheap way to do it. But there's different ways to do it. But it shouldn't be too expensive, I wouldn't think. I have no clue what a shop would charge to install that, though. So maybe someone else could chime in. Let's get back to the question here about the dash cam, the poll here. See, 70% do not run dash cams. Okay, well, that's interesting. 33 votes here so far. So 30% of you do, though. So, yeah, I mean, it just comes down, I guess, to your personal comfort level and how much you drive and all that. But to me, it's always good coverage to have. But we can leave that up for another minute here, see if anyone else wants to chime in. Because we do have 97 people here. So curious to hear if anyone else has those. But let me see. So other questions here. Austin says, I wish more battery-powered dash cams were available. I don't like having to hack up the interior for a proper installation with constant power. Yeah, that is the tough thing about them. And I don't love the wires all over the bullet, but it's just, honestly, after a while, I just kind of quit paying attention to it. And that's something I just kind of put out of my mind. But it's definitely not a very clean setup for sure. Steven says, loss of trust is hard to get back. Definitely true. And Rafi says, I think luxury car services are different. Dealership services are definitely hit or miss. Yeah, it's like everything. I think there's most of these dealers, it's hit or miss. It's interesting. And even like my sister took her Mazda in this week for a weird thing that happened with her CX-5. And she's like, I've been going to this dealer forever. She even had Volkswagens before. It's a Volkswagen Mazda like combo. And even she's been in the same service department for probably 10 years. They always treated her well. And then like just this past time, they got some new receptionist who was like super dismissive with her and like was not very nice. And it's like, even with staff changes, like you think you have a good place, and then they hire new people, and then it could just go down the drain too. So it's a whole thing. But all right, so we got a few more people voting here. So still holding about 70-30. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, in the Bullet, it's honestly overkill these days because I very rarely drive it. So it's like I don't really have too many opportunities where I need to like have footage of anything. But and that's also why I saw someone asked earlier if I'll ever bring back the dash cam videos that I did, because I did do like a stuff I saw video. I just don't drive the Bullet enough, and the press cars, I used to put a dash cam in those and swap it over every week, but now having multiple press cars some weeks and having to constantly yanking in and out of cars and having wires dangling everywhere when I'm doing, when I have these press cars, it just wasn't super exciting to do. So I quit doing that. So I don't have enough footage to do those videos anymore. They were entertaining whenever I used to drive a lot, but these days, working from home, especially, and not doing as much driving as I used to, especially now being a dad, and I'm just kind of more home based most of the time. I don't have as much of a social life as I used to have, so I don't get out as much. So that's why I don't do those videos anymore. But if you want to watch a fun series, I mean, it wasn't always the most amazing thing, but it's just funny seeing bad drivers and stuff. You can go look up. There's a playlist. Stuff I saw last month is my old dash cam playlist there. You can check out. But anyway, I'll go ahead and close this poll here and get back to the other questions. So let me see. So Rafi says, it especially sucks when they scare you about maintenance. Yeah, that's true. That is always crappy when they're, especially with people they think they can kind of squeeze a few extra pennies out of. It's always not cool. Rafi also says, I would have made a fuss about it. I would have done the same. I had it once where they put 10 to 15 miles when I only went for an oil change. Oh, that's extra sketchy. I thought 5 was bad, but yeah, 10 to 15. Yeah, I don't know what I would do if they like unplugged my dash cam and then drove a bunch of miles. Yeah, I don't know, because it's like, again, if you don't have any proof, like they got you by the nuts there. So it's like, man, I don't know what you do, but that would not be fun. Hopefully your car was okay after that, whatever they were doing. But that is really crappy to hear. Sorry to hear that, Rafi. And Steven says, very nice you mentioned this. Might make great content. Dealership service disasters. Yeah, that would. Like I said, if I had proof, I totally would have done a video about it, but I don't want to, throw a dealer under the bus if they potentially didn't do anything wrong, aside from unplugging the dash cam there, but it's still just sketchy. As Steven said, did they plug it back in? They did plug it back in whenever they pulled back into the service bay. So, and I think that was some people, because I actually was looking it up on Reddit, and there were some people that were upset. They're like, oh, I didn't realize that my dash cam was unplugged. Apparently this does happen other places. And, they were upset because they didn't realize their dash cam was unplugged until after the fact. And they were like, oh, I wish I would have known that my dash cam wasn't running. But as far as, like legally they plugged it back in, and I'm sure they were hoping that I wouldn't go back and check the footage and see that there was a gap there. So I don't know if that was just them being courteous or being shady about being like, see, nothing's wrong, and hoping that it I didn't notice. I don't know. But yeah, they did plug it back in. And let me see. Steven says, I've saved many clients having dash cam footage. Oh, well, that's great to hear. So there you go. Straight from a lawyer. Have a dash cam to save yourself there. So I think it's definitely a good idea. Especially if you're in the right and you didn't do anything wrong, it really goes a long way. And 2 says, I run a FitCam X. Actually, they make one for the Mustang. It seems more OEM. People barely notice. Interesting. I've never heard of that brand. I'll have to check it out. Thanks for the suggestion there too. And Steven says, always stay at the dealership. Well, that's good to know too. Yeah. In my case, I had no clue, that it was unplugged until I got home, because I had my laptop on me, but I didn't think to, because again, it was still running. So I had assumed that, yeah, they had actually, left it running the whole time. And like I said, I didn't know until I got home, but good advice as well. I appreciate that. Says, hey, Matt, hope you're doing well. Any word on when the new Tacoma will be on sale and you'll have a review out? Curious on pricing too. Any official news there? No official news on pricing. As far as when they will be on sale, I don't know that either. I believe I heard a while ago, I don't know if it was a speculation thing or what. I think I heard December being thrown around, but I could be wrong as far as when they're going to be on sale. As far as when my review will be out, I will be driving it soon, but Toyota has not given us an embargo date, so I can't say when it's going to be out there. And since they haven't posted an embargo, I don't want to say when I'm driving it, so that I don't want to, if they want to keep that a little close to the chest there. So I will be driving the new Tacoma soon, though. I can say that. So yeah, and I have no clue when the embargo is going to be, but it shouldn't be too much longer. That's, yeah, I know it's very vague and I apologize, but as soon as I'm able to say more, I will. But I am going to be driving the new Tacoma. I'm on that program and I will be driving it here this year, I can say. But I am not able to say anything more beyond that. But I don't have any news about pricing or on sale date. I don't know that stuff. Even if I did, I don't know if I'd be able to say, but I don't have any news there on that either. And Austin says, having some major Ferris Bueller days off, Ferrari garage attendant vibes from these dealers. Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah, I need to go back and actually watch that whole movie because I've never actually seen it, but I've seen, the Ferrari stuff. So, I've heard such good things about it. I'm just one of those movies I've never gotten around to watching for whatever reason. And Goth Rocker says, "Oh, if they plugged the dash cam back in, clearly on that test drive they gunned it. We all know." I mean, I think that they just wanted to make sure that. I mean, it's very possible. I'm right there with you. But it's. I think again they wanted to make sure that if the person drives away and they're not paying attention, that it's not like if I were to actually crash into something and be like, oh, the dealer unplugged my dash cam and they didn't plug it back in, then I could have, I could potentially, that could come back on them. So I feel like plugging it back in covers their butt in multiple ways, and so that's why they do that as well. But yeah, I'm not sure what the deal is with that. And Evolving says, to avoid anyone from disconnecting the dash cam, wire it in such a way where they can't fit CamX cameras would make disconnecting it very difficult. That's good to know. Yeah, maybe just in the future it's worth, especially if I know I'm going to a sketchy place for whatever reason. I think honestly with the Bullet, I need to start, like, unless it's something I can't do myself, like the inspections, unfortunately. But anything else, I feel like I'm tempted to start doing my own maintenance because I'm that kind of like OCD sometimes about that stuff. So we'll see how the first oil change goes. But I mean, I trust this mechanic that my buddy suggested to me, so hopefully it'll all be good. But I wish I would have known about that camera brand. But anyone else, yeah, if any of these ones that hardwire them, yeah, if you can get it hardwired so it is always running no matter what, and they can't mess with the camera. Because I actually had one other time. Funny enough, same dealer, but this was way back with my second Mustang GT, I think. I took it in for something else, and they had to do a test drive, and that dealer didn't unplug the dash cam, but the dash cam, since it was, again, just suction cup to the windshield, they pushed it up so it was just seeing the sky. I also was pretty pissed about that, but that was the GT, and I knew I was getting rid of that car soon, and so it wasn't worth making a fuss over because I knew that I was going to be trading it in a few months later for the Bullet. So that one I kind of let that one slide, but so that's why, and that was the same dealer. So I had assumed that dealer, was going to at least leave the dash cam on. And so that's why I was like, okay, well, not only did they mess with it, but they even turned it off, made it even worse. So, but yeah, I think the hardwiring there is definitely the way to go to make sure that doesn't happen in the future. And thanks for sending the link there on Instagram there for the Mustang. I appreciate it. SLMD says 5 miles of burnouts and launches. That's freaking jerks. I mean, now I will say, the car sat for about 20 minutes while they did the paperwork or whatever before I was actually able to, hop back in the car and drive off. But even before because I didn't know that they were going to unplug the dash cam, but I always just check the car out, and I'm always a little suspicious after anyone has touched the car. I smelled for brakes, clutch, anything weird, oil, anything like that. And everything seemed okay. I'm sure if you roast a clutch, maybe after 20 minutes, you'd still smell a little bit. And when you start driving again, I don't know. Same thing with the, brakes, the tires looked okay, and all that. Cause I actually did check all that stuff. Cause I'm just, not trusting of dealers by nature in general, but everything seemed okay, but it's just, again, I don't know. Even if they're just doing red line rips, I guess that's harmless. I do it myself, but I don't like someone doing that in my car for sure. Steven says the Corvette PDR cams stay on in valet mode. Well, that's great that they do that. That's very nice. And I don't know, is there a way to lock those so that if a dealer, I guess, because I feel like a dealer could just turn that off still and just go into the menu and turn it off. But if there's a way to keep that on and force it to stay on, that would be great. I don't know. I've never actually played around with that too much. And Yanel says, thanks for the info. I'm very interested in one manual Tacoma to tow the track car would be great. Trying to convince my wife that we should get in a manual. She's not sold yet. Help me out. Oh man. Yeah. The manuals, I think it's great. And I think, the manual, it could go either way. I guess you could kind of argue that it, might be more desirable, so therefore it might be worth more down the road. So it could be a better investment. That could be a potential edge there to help with the convincing. And you could also just say, if the manual would make you happier, it'll make you happier. And that should be another valid reason. If it's going to make you happy, then hopefully she'd be in support of that, as long as it's not inconveniencing anything else, or her or whatever. But if that's something that's another valid thing, I would try with those two there. Best of luck. I hope the manual is good. We'll see how that is. I'm hoping we get to drive the manual. I don't know if we're going to be able to drive the manual or not. So I have no clue what kind of Tacomas we'll be driving. But if there's a certain one in particular you're interested in, please send me a message and I will try, and if I'm not at least driving them, try and get more info on it, or try to focus on that a little bit in the video for you. If that's something that you're, if there's a certain thing or a certain option you like info on or whatever, definitely send me a message. I'm more than happy to, poke around and try and do something there to give you some extra info if that's something that would be helpful for you. And Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships there. I really appreciate the generosity every week, Kyle. It really means a lot, and glad to see those were snatched up there by everybody. And so thanks so much, Kyle, and I'm sure everyone else really appreciates it too. And getting back to the other questions here, Steven says, I always check my oil level after, sorry, moved here on me. After an oil change, my son's Bullet was short a quart. Holy crap, that is, man, I really don't want to just dog on dealers this entire live stream, but geez, a quart short on oil is bad. Like, man, I know that they got to bust through these oil changes quickly, but yeah, stuff like that just makes me want to just start doing my own oil changes. But again, I'm thankfully going to have hopefully a good mechanic here going forward. And Goth Rocker says that happened to my friend. They pushed the dash cam up and the camera only sees the sky. And then once back at the dealer, it was aimed properly. Awful, man. Yeah, it's, all right, I'm gonna try not to continue to dwell on this here, but yeah, it's they need to have a code for the Corvette. Okay, that is awesome, man. That is another good reason to have a Corvette or anything with those performance data recorders. That is really nice to have. And he says dealers have to call owners to access the area to get into the valet thing. That's really cool. Evolving says, would you own a GR Corolla? Why or why not? I know you had it for a few days for testing. I love the GR Corolla, and I was actually just talking to someone else about this recently as well. They were like, of all the hot hatches you had this summer, like which one made the most impact on you? And obviously they all have different strengths, so it's going to come down to personal preference. But Evolving, if you're asking my personal preference and my personal biases and just me personally, not being a car reviewer here, but just being a person that enjoys cars, that got to drive all the hot hatches this summer, GR Corolla, I think, would probably be the one that I would enjoy personally the most, because it just reminded me more of the WRXs with the boosty nature of that 3-cylinder turbo, having to work it a little bit harder. Now you obviously have a downgrade on the inside, you have a downgrade with practicality. So if it's a vehicle I'm actually going to be driving around the family in and I want a bigger hatch, then in that case I would go Integra Type S. But if it was just a personal thing for just me, and it was just about the driving experience, and I didn't care about the interior and stuff, which I personally would take a back seat to that stuff, because the GR Corolla, having the all-wheel drive would come in handy here, especially the 265s on the front of the Integra and the Type R. I mean, it was just rainy in the summer when it was hot, and those tires still couldn't put down power. So if you see any kind of snow, I mean, maybe you can downgrade tire sizes potentially. I'm not sure what fits on those wheels, or if you can downgrade wheels to still clear the brakes on those things. But if you see bad weather, I go GR Corolla. And so, if I'm occasionally driving in slick roads, I feel like, for me also the GR Corolla would be the better one. So again, put it in my own personal shoes. Yes, I would own the GR Corolla if I needed something that was all-wheel drive and practical, with 4 doors and stuff. GR Corolla is actually probably, what I would get. Again, assuming I had the money for that, and that was kind of what I was going for, if I could make compromises, or if I needed to go something cheaper, I'd love a Veloster N as well, and just deal with, this. And those also have skinnier tires, so it's a little bit more manageable probably in the snow than a Type R is. But Yeah, I love the GR Corolla. And if you watch that video, I mean, you'll probably see, I mean, I was really infatuated with that thing. And yeah, that's one of the highlights of this year. That one really left a mark on me, and it really surprised me because I mean, I only did a very brief drive in the first review last year, and it was good, but it was grinding when I was trying to do quick shifts, and it was hot and it was up at elevation, and it just didn't feel quite as impressive. Whenever I was on my own home turf by myself, and it was a car that had it was a later production one, so it had a better transmission and all that. It was just pure magic, that car. And so yes, I really love the GR Corolla, and highly recommend them. If again it fits what you need out of a car, I think it is absolutely worth owning, and it's gonna be a very special car for a long time. So I think it's a good investment. I think it's a good purchase. And I even argued in the video, if you saw, even getting a lightly used one, you can get a lightly used base one for low 40s. And I mean, that was back in the summer when I was looking. I don't know what they're at now, but you can get one. You don't have to pay 60 grand for one. You can get one in the low 40s, and all day I'd take it over a Golf R or anything else. I mean, it's just so good if you don't care about the inside and stuff. And let me see, getting back to the questions here. Kyle says, I'm upset for you about your car. Hope all is good with it. Yeah, thankfully, it seems to be totally fine. So as soon as I brought it back from the inspection, though, I haven't driven it since, because that was like right whenever all the press cars started showing up, and I have just been bombarded with press cars ever since. So I haven't had any chances to drive it after that. But I mean, it seemed fine on the drive home. Everything seems okay. Because I was driving home, like no radio, like listening to everything, like really being OCD again, even before checking the footage, just because again, I'm always like nervous anytime I bring the car in for service. But hopefully it's all good. And Spike says, when I took my SI to the dealer, the tech covered the interior camera to block their face. The interior camera, I guess I can kind of understand a little bit, more, but still, like, if it's your own stuff, they should at least tell you. Maybe they did tell you, I don't know, but I feel like they should tell you, like, hey, if you're bringing your car into this, establishment, we're not going to allow dash cams, and then just go somewhere else. Because I don't think that's the case everywhere. And I mean, I get it, a tech doesn't want you filming them, picking their nose or whatever it is, but just, to me, it's like there shouldn't be anything to hide. Like, if there's nothing to hide there, then, like, what's the harm in being filmed? If it, I understand, from some people's perspectives, they don't want to be filmed and have people watch them working or whatever. And I can see that, it's just, when you're dealing with someone's very expensive property, the most expensive thing they own, most likely, aside from their house, it's different, I don't know, but yeah, I'm sure there's some techs that would probably, love to rip my head off over those comments, but just to me, I don't know, it just doesn't sit well with me. And Goth says, the dealer does turn the Corvette PDR camera off. They hook their computer up to it and option it for the testing. Good dealers should leave it on, but they never do. The dealers do get around the code. Interesting. All right, well, there's the other side to it. So that's, even when there's hoops to jump through, they still jump through them. Man. And let me see here. So I see everyone thanking Kyle. That's awesome. And let me see. So Evolving also says, glad you said that because I own one, a circuit edition, in fact. Well, great. Yeah, great purchase, and glad you're enjoying yours as well. But yeah, I absolutely love them. Steven says, for Z06 owners, they just started selling the E-Ray all seasons that are the same size as Z06, which is awesome news. Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. And yeah, it's so Stephen, I can't remember if you have a Z06 or not, but if you check out the member schedule, I did bump up. I will have a Z06 review coming here very, very soon. So stay tuned for that. I won't get into it. I'll save my remarks for the video, and then I can come back on the live stream after that video goes live and chat more about that. But Z06, man, oh man, I'll just leave it at that. And okay, 70th anniversary, very nice, very nice. Yeah, Yeah, I'll say a lot more here once that video goes live, but that'll be a very fun video to watch, especially if you're a fan of my reactions, I think. And Joel says, seems like Matt doesn't want the dealer to turn around the corner and see how it does. Yep, please do not turn down onto the back road in my own car. That is doesn't sit well with me, which I guess is hypocritical because yes, my entire living is based off of redlining other people's cars, whether it's manufacturers or dealers or personal owners who kindly let me do that and give me full consent. I always check ahead of time. And I'm always like, you're sure you're okay with me redlining this thing? And they always say yes, very kindly. So it's probably very hypocritical of me to not like people redlining my car, but just it's I don't know. I'm just so protective of the Bullet. I don't know, but just my baby. And Fook says, imagine someone works on your house and unplugs all the cameras. You work on my property, doesn't grant you access to mess with my stuff. I totally agree. And Austin says, stay away from any dealers near back roads. Definitely. Very, very true. That's the thing about this dealer too, is like, it'd be easy to do some acceleration runs because they are on a high speed limit road that's 4 lanes across. And it's like you turn out of the dealer and there's a straightaway in both directions. You can do a 1/4 mile run either way, and it's like great. So yeah, not the best. So Steven says we're all the same. Yeah, it's I'm glad I'm not the only one that's like that. But Maddie says, hey Matt, I own a 1987 Buick Regal Turbo T. Would you be interested in doing a video on my car in the spring? I don't know if you would want to or not. Love your channel. I would love to do a review on that. Thanks for offering it. If you'd like to send me an email whenever you want, and I'd love to set something up in the spring if you're not too far. I'm in Pittsburgh. And I usually give priority to anyone that's closer just because it's a little easier for me to, drive a shorter distance versus, spending, a full day or more driving somewhere further. And sometimes I meet up with people halfway if you're, a little further out or something, but I would love to review that car. Thanks so much for offering. I think that'd be a huge hit on the channel too. I know people have been asking for more stuff from the 80s and the 90s. So that would be, I think, really everyone, I'm sure, I'd love to see that. So that'd be great. Thanks so much for offering. And yeah, definitely send me an email. There's in the description there, I have my email address. It's just mattmoranmotoring@gmail.com, or you can send me a Facebook message, whatever works for you. And I'll keep an eye out for that whenever. But yeah, thanks so much for the offer. I think that'll be a really awesome one. And so hopefully we can set something up in the spring. And so there you go, everyone. Keep an eye out. Hopefully we can make a 87 Regal Turbo T review happen in the spring. That'd be awesome. And Evolving says, will you be live streaming from SEMA? I will not. So I will be home by the time I do the next live stream. So I won't be doing any live stuff at SEMA. I will be doing coverage at SEMA. But the coverage I'm doing is just going to be, I'm just going there with Shell. So I will be doing some sponsored stuff with them out there. I may also do some personal stuff if there's stuff worth doing. My SEMA footage typically in the past doesn't do very well. As far as like in the past, I've tried to do like, hey, like let's just walk around SEMA and do a little vlog of like the cool stuff I see. Those never do well for me, so I'm not sure if I'm going to bother doing that. I might just do Instagram stories or something like that instead, like I've done a couple of times in the past, because then it's just pictures and takes no effort. So I may do something like that. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you can maybe stay up there. It's just Matt Maran Motoring there. But I may do my own video. I will have a very cool video from SEMA coming. I'm not sure exactly when I'm posting it. But I'll probably be posting it sometime here this week or weekend potentially. But I'm going to have a very cool video. So I guess it depends on how you feel about it. But I think it's going to be a very, very cool video. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it's going to be an experience that I have never had before. I don't want to say what it is just yet. So stay tuned, though. I'm going to have a very cool, kind of out of the ordinary video here this week. It's not going to be just boring sponsored stuff or something. It's gonna be a really cool video that just happens to be sponsored, but it'll be fun. So stay tuned for that. And I'm also gonna be doing some reels on Instagram as well. That's kind of part of the deal. It's mostly gonna be reels, but I will be doing one very cool video as well. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So I'm excited for that. Let me see other questions here. So Steven says, be nice to spy on dealers when they drive test these cars. These stories are common. A friend of mine never eats in his car, but found 3 to 4 fresh McDonald's French fries in his car after picking it up. Yeah, that's not great either. Yeah, there's been some weird stuff too, just even like radio stations being changed, things like that. It's like, I don't know. I feel like if I was a mechanic, I just wouldn't touch anything in someone's car. I would just like do my job and that's it. But yeah, it's interesting how some of these cars get treated. Goth also says, well, that tech at the dealer took the bullet for a run, but at least it is made for it. Not saying it's right, but it is not right, but at least the car is okay. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like I said, I also redline the car. It's not like it's something it's never seen before. It's broken in. It's not like it's in a break-in period or it's fresh, brand new or anything like that. So yes, it's I can, just certainly see what you mean. And that's why I didn't make a whole big video out of it, again, without any proof or anything, but just figured I'd, share it here since it was figures a fun little behind the scenes thing to talk about. Austin says, definitely check out Tavarish's McLaren P1 Evo when you're at SEMA. It looks awesome. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, there's always a lot of really cool builds. So I'm excited just to see the cool stuff myself. And I mean, if you guys would like to see SEMA coverage, let me know. Maybe I'll do a poll here and see just out of the 81 people that are hanging out here. Not like that'll be any kind of indication of how well a video would do, but I'm just kind of curious if people would like to see coverage from SEMA. So let me see. Hopefully you guys are enjoying these little polls here, something a little out of the ordinary, a little more interactive here, because I enjoy getting your guys' feedback in real time. It's cool. So vote on that if you want there. And answer a couple more questions here while I'm waiting. So Goth Parker says, I'm not into SEMA, to be honest. Okay, and Steven says you should tell us dealership, not defamation. Well, I mean, again, I don't want to throw them under the bus if they truly didn't do anything wrong. That's why I've made sure not to mention the dealer. But honestly, I would just say avoid all Pittsburgh area Ford dealers because I have bad experiences with all of them. And I wish I had a good one to suggest. It's just there's nothing in the Pittsburgh area that I've actually had a good experience with consistently. I've had decent experience with Moon Township Ford. They've been pretty good with the Mach-E, although they also were kind of dumb. I won't get into that whole thing. I got into it a little bit in the Mach-E 1 year update with them not doing the rear rotors properly whenever those were going bad early. So even them, I can't recommend 100%, but at least they've been honest and nice, I guess, which is, I guess, the best you can expect. At least they're not deliberately being, bad, but they also, just did not fix the car right the first time. So anyway, I can't recommend any Ford dealers in the Pittsburgh area whatsoever. And Fuchs says, don't make any excuses for them. I have fun with my partner too. Nothing never been done before, but I'd hate someone else to do it. That's a good analogy. Very true. And Jazz says, years ago, there was a Ford dealer in Aspinwall owned by the Humez family. I thought they were okay. I'm not sure. I've never been to the one in Aspinwall, but I don't know if there's any good ones out there, but getting back to the pool here, let's see. Okay, 87% say they'd like to see some stuff from SEMA. So I mean, maybe I will do a quick little video if it could be a little thing. I know some people would like to see vlogs. We'll see how this week goes. It's going to be a real wild week because I'm like taking like the first flight out in the morning. Not tomorrow, but taking a super early flight. I'm gonna be exhausted the first day. But I need to get there at a certain time to do stuff I need to do. And then I'm taking the red eye on Friday. So it's going to be like, just going to be an exhausting whirlwind for a few days. But maybe I will try and do a little vlog at SEMA if it seems like there's some interest there. Might not hurt. So I appreciate the feedback there. Thanks for everyone there that joined in on the poll. And I see this is very valuable insight because now I'm like, okay, maybe I will do something. So thanks for the support there. I appreciate it. I'll be curious. I'll just have to see what's there too, because if there's, I know a lot of people are into classics on this channel. I know like a lot of the stuff I'm interested in at SEMA is like the classics sometimes, but if there's some cool like modern stuff that I think would have broader appeal on the channel here, then maybe that's something I can try and do. So I appreciate the feedback there, everyone. And let me see. So Steven says Jacksonville, Illinois, great service. Middletown and Wisconsin's great. There you go. So anyone, if you're in those areas, it's great to get the white list of the stuff that's actually the good dealers, I guess. And Copper says, have the used car reviews been doing better, or are they still hit or miss? To be honest, other than the Impala one, they've all been actually disappointments from a view standpoint. The Mach 1 video did okay, but as far as the dealer ones, they've all been actually pretty disappointing. I thought they would do better. But with those ones, I'm kind of playing the long game, because the reason why I picked those cars in particular was because they have a high search rate on YouTube, according to YouTube or Google Trends. You can go into Google Trends and see what's trending and what's, the average search volume for whatever you want to type in. So I'm kind of playing the long game with those videos, hoping that no one else has reviewed a 2012 Acura TL. And so hopefully as those searches trickle in little by little, those videos will eventually become decent money makers. But as far as subscribers and just the usual push out to the usual viewers, total failures for the most part. So, and that's the tricky thing, because like the TL, for example, I mean, that's like, I think 5,000 views, and that one like had a lot of search volume on YouTube. So it's like, I don't know if just my video is not ranking high enough yet, or what the deal is with that, but it is what it is. YouTube's always a crapshoot. It's stuff most of the time is like, oh, this is going to do great, and it does terrible. Stuff that you think is going to do terrible, you don't care, it just ends up doing great. It's always so hit or miss for the most part. There's a few sure bets, stuff that are the hyped cars of the year or whatever, but a lot of times it's always just unpredictable. So and even like, I mean, I see this every single year. This isn't like a new phenomenon either. It's like Impala SS, a 10 grand car, is the hottest video of the year that I've posted. It's none of the other crazy stuff, not the GR Corolla, not the Integra Type S, not the Civic Type R, not anything else that I've done. We will see if the Z06 is any better, but I'm not even expecting much out of that, even though I know it's a great video. It's going to be awesome. It's just like, it's really bizarre what's hit or miss. And even like last year, the Type R, I was on the launch event for that. I was taking the Type R around track. I was chasing down David Patterson. We were doing hot laps together and having a blast, and great, awesome video. I thought I did a really good job on the review of the Type R, and that did nothing. But my review on a Sequoia, when that first came out, huge. That was the biggest success of the year. A Sequoia, like who would have guessed, So it's like, it's very, very hard to predict. So it is what it is, but just the nature of YouTube, and like anyone else's job, there's always challenges. And so that's one of the challenges, is trying to figure out what the right thing is to do. And a lot of times there's no sure bet and no good answer there. So that's why I've kind of adopted the approach of just throw as much stuff at the wall as possible and see what sticks, But Austin says, I'm actually do a poll about who likes polls. Hopefully I'm not overdoing the polls here, but I appreciate the feedback there, Austin. Jazz says, for non-Ford dealerships, I like the McKean dealers in Pittsburgh. However, the family has since sold their dealerships. They owned the first Oldsmobile dealer circa 1920s. That's awesome. I think I remember the name, but yeah, they've been gone a long time for sure. And Jazz says, and then owned Honda and other dealers. However, yeah, they sold them. Yeah. It's been, I feel like, I don't know when they got rid of them, but I must have been very young, because I very vaguely remember them. And Steven says, is there a resource beyond Google to check dealerships? I don't think so, unless you're looking on like the Better Business Bureau site or something like that. But I don't think there's really anything else beyond that. And he says, yeah, probably early 2000s for that dealer network. Golf Rocker says, my issue with SEMA is the cars are really over the top. It really is for aftermarket people. I'm boring, but I keep my car as factory stock. I mean, I usually do as well. So a lot of it is, overboard for me too. Sometimes it's just interesting to see people's creativity. My big issue with SEMA the past few years, and again, everyone likes different things, so I don't want to, bash on certain modifications or, certain types of vehicles. But SEMA, I mean, it's just been overrun by brodozers, which, is just all these jacked up trucks with train horns and, crazy chrome everywhere. The whole undercarriage is chrome, and like, they couldn't go over a speed bump without, getting stuck. They're just like no off-road capability in these trucks anymore. And they just like are so bizarre with, I'm not a brodozer fan. I apologize if anyone is a big fan of lifted trucks with the roll coal and have train horns and crap, but that is like my most disliked type of vehicle, and SEMA's just like half of it is just like brodozers, and I just like, oh, it's the worst, especially because they have the SEMA Ignited thing, which is like the parade on Friday when everyone leaves. And not only they have all the train horns, but they're like blaring their train horns like the entire time. And just yeah, I won't get it. I won't get into it anymore because I don't want to offend anybody. But man, not into brodozers. Evolving says, would you be collaborating with anyone in the near future? Also, have you ever entertained doing a podcast, maybe even with some of your viewers, depending on their experience in the auto industry? I don't think I'm collabing with anyone in the near future. There's always a potential for collaborations whenever I go on these drive programs, just because sometimes, you get paired up with, because usually you're paired up with another driver, another, journalist or whatever. And so if it's someone who's also into car or into YouTube, doing the reviews on YouTube, then you can sometimes do a collab like that. But my problem with collabs and reviews is that it ends up ballooning the duration of the video. It just ends up being way too long. And it's always like good conversation that I don't want to cut out, and I don't want to bump it into a second video or something, but it always ends up hurting the video typically, it seems, for me. And so that's kind of the problem, is I have a hard enough time, especially with new cars, with all the technology and stuff and all the crap you have to cover, like to try and even confine myself to under 30 minutes is often hard. And I've really been trying to get closer to the 20-minute mark. And then you add in someone else talking for 5 minutes about their own viewpoint, which is great to get that extra insight, but it's then the video just gets way harder. And I mean, every time I've had a collab with someone where I've had to edit the video afterwards, it's just a complete nightmare, because I'm like, what do I cut out? I don't want to cut out too much and not give them enough airtime, but then I got to keep this video at a reasonable length. And it's just like, do I cut out more of my stuff? But then I feel like there's only so much I can cut out of my stuff, where I want to say what I need to say to make the video what I want it to be. And so it's just a whole thing. So that's tough. So collabs for me in the future are going to have to be like separate dedicated videos that aren't reviews, that are just, something other than a video that's a review like that. And as far as podcasts, I've entertained podcasts. I just feel like there's so many podcasts out there. Like every single person with a pulse is doing a podcast, it seems. And so I just didn't feel the need to throw my hat into that ring. They're also really hard to monetize. You have to go out and manually sell the ads, which I'm not very good at doing. And maybe if you have a team or you have a salesman that can go out and pitch you every week, or you have a really big podcast, that's great. And it could potentially spill over into, views on the channel. So, I mean, that was kind of why I've looked into it and considered it in the past. I've flirted with the idea of just taking the audio from the weekly update and just either uploading that straight the way it is, or re-recording a separate version of the weekly update, just not referring to like the images on the screen, instead of being like, wow, doesn't that car look hideous? And instead be like, for those of you listening, like, this looks hideous, or just try and custom tailor it a little bit so that it's not bizarre to just listen to without any video. So I've considered that stuff. I don't see, for me, being a one-man crew, I am so overworked. I'm so maxed out. I mean, there's multiple nights a week where as you see, if you see the late uploads, I'm working until 11 o'clock at night sometimes, just trying to keep up with, trying to film all the car reviews during the day, edit stuff, do all the behind the scenes of emailing back and forth with sponsors, or with, trying to get more cars to review, or whatever it is that I'm doing, just emails and stuff like that, responding to comments, responding to messages, which I do a lot of. There's just a lot of stuff. And so adding a podcast onto that, which won't make me any money and probably will take a long time before it ever benefits the channel, it's just a really tough sell for me right now. If I had free time or I had help, it'd certainly be something I'd be open to. But it's just, it's inconceivable for me to add anything onto my plate right now. I feel like I need to take stuff off my plate. And I can't afford to do that right now, because the channel doesn't get enough views to, decrease the amount of uploads or something like that. So I got to keep up the pace, but I'm really burning the candle at both ends already. So not interested in really adding anything, to be totally honest, but it's a great idea. I think it'd be fun to do, in a perfect world where I had free time. That would be something I'd totally consider for sure. Unfortunately, I'm not in that place, and can't envision myself being in that place for a long time unless I really start to get some big success on the channel. But the way things have gone in the past few years, I'm not expecting any kind of, crazy transformation or anything. And Steven says you really pulled all of our muscles on people messing with your bullet. I appreciate the sympathy, and I'm sorry for the stressing people out there with the story there. But yeah, it's unfortunate. But let me see. Got a few more minutes here, so I'm gonna try and get caught up on the questions. So Steven says put up a short before that video goes live. Yeah, shorts are something too that I've considered. The thing with shorts is they also don't pay hardly anything. That's one of the reasons why I haven't focused on that. I'm doing this channel as my full-time job. I gotta focus on the stuff that pays the bills, and shorts are a cute idea, and I guess they do seem to help a little bit with growth, although it's arguable if you're getting the right type of growth, but that's a whole nother tangent I won't get into. But regardless, the benefits of shorts seems debatable to me right now, and so that's why I haven't really got into them, and I probably won't until they either start paying real money for them, or the benefits are more surefire than they are currently. Because right now it's like you get a bunch of subscribers, you get a bunch of views, but those views don't pay you anything, and those subscribers only mostly want to see more shorts, which also don't pay, and they're not actually watching long form stuff typically. Even though YouTube has now changed the algorithm to suggest the long form stuff from your channel from your shorts viewers to kind of try and bridge that gap, but it just seems like most shorts people want to stay in the shorts feed. They want to just keep seeing those 15-second hits or whatever, and that's it. And so it's not a good conversion rate. So that's part of why it's to me not worth it to do the shorts there, even if it is just a re-upload of a little clip or something low effort. It's not even to me worth that. And Austin said, I actually like the polls, Matt. They're fun and help drive the discussion. I'm glad you like them, Austin. And he says, Matt, you need to start some drama with another YouTuber, and that will get you on trending. Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple of times, and I don't want to go into this, but there's been a couple of times where I've really, really had to bite my tongue hard because I don't want to start beef. But yeah, you're right. That would be a great way to, I'm sure, get on trending and get lots of views and stuff. But that's not the way I want to get views. I don't want to be that guy. Daniel says, my Mustang had a squeak, so Ford replaced the steer knuckles under warranty. The noise persisted, but I couldn't take the car back right away. By that time, the warranty was up and Ford did nothing. Well, that's crappy. I don't know, a squeak, and they replaced the steer knuckles. To me, that just strikes me as kind of funny. I feel like that wouldn't, unless it was only happening when you're turning the wheel. That seems kind of interesting, but sorry they didn't fix it correctly. I mean, I feel like whenever there's something in process, I mean, I'm sure you already, tried to pursue this, but I feel like if they start a fix and they haven't actually fixed it, then that should have, since it was started under the warranty period, I feel like it should continue until the issue is fixed, regardless of where you're at warranty wise. But maybe it doesn't work like that. That sucks to hear. So sorry that they screwed you there. He says the same dealer made an offer to buy that car in person, but decreased it by $1,000 when I came back a week later. When I showed them my CarMax offer, they bumped it back to the original offer. Man, some more crappy dealers. It's just like, I don't know why. I mean, it seems like that is the general consensus. Like most are crappy, unfortunately. It just sucks. Steven says, Steve, Speed Phenom, interesting fellow. I'm fortunate to call him a friend. That's great. Yeah, I don't really know. I've heard the name, but I don't really know anything about them. So I don't have any insight there. Rafi says, do you listen to podcasts? If so, what are your go-to ones? I've never been into podcasts until recently. I just started listening to one podcast, but it's not car related, and it's a very personal thing. So I'm not going to give all the info on that because it's a totally separate non-car related thing I don't need to get into. But I have now gotten into one podcast that's been really, really great. I actually really enjoyed it, and it's kind of nice when you're on long drives or long flights to not just, I used to just listen to music nonstop, and that kind of gets old after a while. So it is, I do appreciate the appeal of podcasts now. I didn't get that before. I now do kind of appreciate it. But yeah, it's just been the one so far. I haven't gotten into any car podcasts yet. And I don't know if I will, because yeah, I mean, it seems like there's been some interesting ones, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have any appeal for other podcasts. Like if I'm going to do a podcast, I want to do a podcast on something that like enriches me in a way that I don't already have info on. Like I want to, learn some new thing that I've never learned about before, something I don't have time to research myself, listen to a podcast about something like that, that kind of, I think, be the way I would, go for the podcast stuff for sure. And Austin says even Hoovie's doing a podcast morning show now. I mean, I guess maybe some of these guys have a bunch of sponsors that are willing to throw money at them to do these things. I don't know. I mean, if it was easy to monetize and someone was like, hey, Matt, like do a podcast and, we'll write you a big check and, we'll be the sponsor for a year or something, like I would totally do it. But it's just, again, if I can't work for free. That's the bottom line for me, unfortunately. Let me see. Goth Rocker says a good car review has to be at least 25 to 30 minutes. If people can't take 25 to 30 minutes out of their day to learn about the second most expensive purchase they will ever make, they're ignorant. I appreciate that viewpoint. I think that, it just depends on personality type. Some people really don't care. They don't look into that. They don't know anything about it and they're okay with having the dealer tell them some story and that's it, but yeah, I agree with you. I think if it's something you're seriously considering, you do your research typically. But that's my personality as well. But I recognize that some people that's not the case. And there's some people it's as simple as like, oh, well, Joe has a blah, 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 and he likes it. So I guess I'll get one of those. And they do no research. They know nothing about it. I mean, I told the story, I think, before, but I can't even remember where I heard it from originally, but someone told me that their friend bought a Wrangler 4xe and they had no clue there was a plug-in hybrid. The dealer didn't tell them. They're just like, oh, I just wanted a Wrangler and this is the one they had. Like no checking about like, why is it so expensive? Why does it have this thing here on the fender? Like they didn't know they bought a plug-in hybrid. I mean, so that, there's a whole spectrum. And so I try and be cognizant of the fact that like there's those people and there's more than one of those people out there. And then you have the people, like us who do our research that are really into cars and know a lot and, want to know more and all that. And so it's trying to reconcile that. That's the tricky thing, is doing the mass appeal of the person who, has never heard the term plug-in hybrid until yesterday. And then the people who are experts and trying to, make a video that's not too over the head of the casual viewer, but isn't so dumbed down that, it puts car enthusiasts to sleep, so that's one of the challenges of doing this job for sure. And some people do it better than others. And I think that's why some of the channels have grown better and they've gotten niches of people and have had success in certain areas, because there's some types of videos with car reviews that do better, for the general public in certain ways. And I think that's a very powerful thing if you can tap into that in the right way. Let me see. Steven says short to advertise a video coming up. That could be a potential thing. And thanks, Steven, also for the last super chat there. We are going to wrap up here in a minute, but a short to advertise is a good idea. It's just the thing is, if it's going to be a good ad, then it would, it's kind of tricky because it seems like YouTube is kind of discouraging shorts as advertisements, because they've said like, the viewer in a short still wants to get a payoff. They don't want it to just be an ad or something like, hey, there's this really cool thing, but you have to click over here to see the rest of it. And I know some people do that as like, multiple part shorts or, TikToks and things like that. But as far as like, not actually starting a story and actually instead being like, hey, like, here's this cool car I have. You have to go over here to watch the full review. I mean, that might work, but it seems like YouTube's discouraging that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I do have to look into that. I mean, that could potentially make sense. But then I also hear from a lot of people that say they don't even want to see shorts on the channel. And I mean, it's just trying to, again, figure out what the best way forward is. I'm not opposed to shorts forever. If there is a good, solid reasoning for them, I will certainly try. And I gave them a shot when they first came out. And I have, a handful of shorts on the channel that I did try, but they just never really did what I was hoping they would do. And yeah, just weren't worthwhile, I think, at the end of the day. Let me see. So Steven said really fast tracked. Great show tonight. Thanks as always. Thanks for joining in, Steven, and for everyone for joining in. Austin says 2 hours goes fast. Always really enjoy these. Have a great week, Matt, and all. Yeah, I really appreciate everyone joining in here. I'm glad it was enjoyable for everyone. And yeah, same thing Goth Rocker is saying here. And it's my Harpy says, good live chat this evening. Glad to participate. Yeah, thanks so much for joining in, everyone. Sorry I didn't get to as many of the non-member questions as I often do, but For anyone that would like to join, become a member in the future, there's always a join button here. There should be one on the video page. On the channel page, there's always a link in the description as well, where you can join in. And that's those green names are the ones that get that priority answering there, just to thank them for their support of the channel. I really appreciate it. It definitely helps to have the memberships there. And so thank you to all the members. Thank you to everyone else who joined. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the live stream. And anyone else who also desperately wants them to answer their question, please send me a message on Facebook. That's where I interact with a lot of viewers, or you can even send me an email if you want. I'm always happy to answer any questions. I do a really good job of that. Even if I can't answer it here in the live stream, I'm always happy to help anyone with, their car shopping or any other questions you have. Always happy to answer. So feel free to contact me in other ways, as well. If you don't want to do the membership, totally fine too. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching and joining here in this live stream. I hope you all have a great week, and definitely stay tuned. Like I said, some really cool stuff coming this week. First in the car review space, and also with another cool video here from SEMA. At least one, maybe even more. We'll see what happens. But anyway, have a great week, everyone. Thank you so much for watching the channel and for the support as always. It always means a lot. Thanks for joining in here tonight. And yeah, have a great week, everyone. Take care.